basically just the name sukad.com. You will be able to find a lot of information there. And from there, you will be able to find our knowledge portal where you can download basically quite a bit of information. It's large groups, I cannot do a full introduction. My name is Mounir Ajam. I'm the co-founder and CEO of SUKAD, a company that we've been operating out of the UAE for 10 years. Personally, for the last 3 years, I've been based in Lebanon. And so technically, SUKAD right now operates from 2 offices. I operate from Lebanon, and we have an office here in Dubai that is based in Knowledge Village. Basically, what I'm going to discuss today predominantly focus on the concept of OPM, Organizational Project Management. And I will start with basically highlighting some of the issues with what exists today in terms of PMOs. And I know some of my colleagues, some of the other presenters might disagree with some of the stuff I would say, but that's fine. We can debate, and we'll have an opportunity. Probably there are many presentations during this conference on PMOs. So we will have a chat about that. To start, okay, how many people work for companies that are maybe 100 plus? Okay? So let me start with challenging you. By the way, please interrupt me at any time. Let's have a discussion. If I cut you short sometime, maybe because there are a lot of material to cover. So, you have a finance department in your organization? Yes? You work in a company that's 100 plus, right? You will have a finance department. Okay. Anyone else? Companies that have 100 plus? You have marketing department? Marketing? Okay. Anyone else? 100 plus company? You have HR department? Okay. Anyone else? 100 plus? You have product management department? What company, what kind of company you work for? You don't have to tell me. For? Do you have a project manager? You have a department called project management? PMO. Ask project management department. I want to be picky with the word. Why is PMO not a PMD?
Why is
PMO not a PMD? You have finance department, right? You have an HR department. Okay. I don't know if you have marketing. Okay. But you have IT. Okay. How come all of these are departments when it comes to project management as an office? Does the name make a difference? What do you think? Okay. How does a PMO work in your organization?
Well, we don't have a department for PMO.
Yeah, but you have a PMO.
I'm the PMO coordinator, but
okay.
We don't have a PMO department.
Explain that. You have a PMO coordinator. You are the PMO coordinator. You mean you are the person of charge?
Yes.
Okay, but you're called the coordinator.
Yes.
Okay, you just chose to be my victim this morning.
Directive role, yes, but it's supported and sometimes directive. You choose how your PMO works in the organization.
Okay, who choose?
The PMO is really, the senior management, the PMO is really a big, vast
Yeah.
set of functions.
Yeah.
Just apply what we want.
But the question is,
So it can be a PMO.
you have a PMO, but the head person is a coordinator, not a department manager.
I'm not saying, I'm not talking about my organization.
Yeah, okay.
PMO could be PMT.
Okay.
All of the departments.
But that's fine. That's what I wanted to start discussing here. Okay. I want to highlight the issue here. Okay. Does the name make a difference? Okay. Okay. Think about it. Maybe we'll come back to it if we have time later in the discussion today. Okay. Basically, what I'm trying to say over here, okay, is organizations have not matured enough for project management yet. We still do not respect project management. I'm not going to talk about all organizations, of course, I cannot generalize, but in general, can you imagine your organization without a finance department? Can you imagine without an HR, IT, marketing, sales? Depends if your company does sales. But yet, you do projects. And you don't have a project management department. Even if you have a PMO, your PMO probably, you're talking about roles, probably its role is quite weak. Okay, again, I'm not generalizing. And I will share with you some data from surveys from PMI and other organizations around the world. Some of those people who did the surveys are here today. speaking in other events. Human system is one of them, and others, organization as well. Okay. So I want to just start with getting you to think about just the name, if nothing else, that tell us there is, I'm not going to use the word problem, but there is something to think about. Okay? Let's go on. This is called the Cobb paradox. And we know why a project failed. We know how to prevent their failure. So why do they still fail? Ideally, if we have more time, I would have liked you to work at this question at your table. But let's speak out. We have a microphone, 2 microphones. I'm going to ask you for a favor. Whoever speaks, keep the microphone with you. Next time someone wants to speak, raise your hand, and the person who has the microphone, there are 2 microphones, will have the job of handing the microphone to someone else. Agreed? Okay. Who wants to speak on this? Nada? I'm going to leave the microphone on this side of the room. How about if I leave it with you?
Poor planning.
Poor planning?
Good morning.
Morning? Poor planning. Okay. Why poor planning? I'm going to play a 5-year-old child. Why poor planning?
Sometimes unclear scope.
Why unclear scope? You know this game?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, the 5 whys?
I know the 5
Okay.
whys. Because there is no strategy maybe or clear definition of where we want to go.
Why is that? You don't have to answer, someone else can answer.
Organizational problem maybe.
Okay, organizational problem.
Over expectation.
Over expectation, I hear here.
I think the main reason is because of the lack of the project management practices.
So we do lack project management practices.
This is why the project fails.
So is it people or organization?
So,
Both?
source code should be both.
From my experience, they always start all over again. There's no lesson learned. So
Okay.
it's every time like it's the first time.
It's every time it's like the first time. In some cases that's fun.
Yes, but not when money's involved or like time or whatever.
Okay.
You don't have the resource.
You do not have the resource.
You know how they fail.
I'm going to play the same game with you. Why you don't have the resource?
Or you have them and you don't know how to use it.
Ah, that's another question. Maybe we do have a resource, because I can tell you I've worked all over the world. And I've never worked with an organization, whether I was an employee or a manager or even an observer, except we complain about we never have enough resources. Okay? People might be playing, in my old days, we used to play solitaire on the computers, and now we are on Facebook, right? But we don't have enough time. So is it effectiveness? Is it role? Is it motivation? Is it process? Is it organization? Maturity of people or organization?
About the business practice.
The business practice.
Business product management.
Okay, anyone else? Last chance? Okay. Yep, I mean, there are many reasons, of course. Now, if I want to answer this question myself, there are hundreds of reasons why project failed. If I can categorize them into 4 major categories, I can tell you project failed because, okay, of improper feasibilities. Organizations do not take the right time or amount of time or energy or proper planning or whatever the case to do a proper feasibility for the project. So we do project just because, or we don't do good planning. Now why? If I go back to the root cause, yes, could be individual, could be process, could be organization, could be maturity. Or we fail in execution. So either we fail in feasibility, or number 2, we fail in planning, or we fail in execution, which means all these 3 reasons are controllable. The 4th reason might not be too controllable, which is project fail because of outside condition. You know, global crisis, a war, things beyond the control of the project management organization or the organization itself. Of course, there are many subtitles and there are many root causes for these failures. But obviously, we know project fails and they still fail. It's like the first time, every time. We haven't learned our lessons. And I'm not sure who said this, but said if we haven't learned our lessons, then we are doomed to repeat it. If we don't learn from history, we're doomed to repeat it. That's why we keep having wars. Okay, We talked about that. Some research on PMO. I'm going to start with PMO because today, whenever we hear about project management and organizations that are interested in project management, what is the first thing they do? Let's implement a PMO. Maybe an executive was in a conference like this and hears great things about PMOs. I don't know how many presentations on PMO in this conference are. Okay? And say, let's implement a PMO. And what do we implement? What do you think we implement when we implement PMOs? Most often.
Well, we should implement three things: tools, process, and resources. This is the
But is that what we're doing? In general, organization.
in my organization.
No, not you. I don't want to be specific here about organization, but in general, when we hear about PMOs today,
In general, no.
the microphone is behind you.
In general, no. People just concentrate on the people to hire 2 or 3 project managers, and that's it.
Okay.
But when it comes to the process, when it comes to the practices,
Okay.
when it comes to the tools itself, no, it's not there.
Okay.
Even the respect or to how to market the PMO in your company, it's also not there. They think it's just about reports. You bring it at the end of the week. This is the status of the project, and that's it.
Okay.
But this is not the PMO.
Okay. Any other opinion? I'll take one more.
A lot of organizations think, oh, PMO, that's something cool, let's have one. Okay.
So it's a trend. It's nice to have.
Nice to have, but afterwards,
Yeah. I can tell you my worst experience with the PMO. Once I was visiting a client, and basically I was, after spending 3 days with them, they told me, we need to introduce you to our PMO. I said, great. I didn't know you even have a PMO. If you have a PMO, why am I here? So basically, they said, I would love to meet the PMO office, the project management office. So they took me to one guy sitting in a cubicle, said, meet our PMO. I said, what? They said, his name is project management officer. Turned out to be his secretary, the secretary for the department manager. But basically, that person collects the data from all the people in the department, and instead of everybody going to the department manager, this guy collects all the data and take it to the department manager, and his title is PMO. Obviously, it's not that bad. This is my worst scenario. But in many organizations, yes, PMOs are probably in a range. There is no clear definition today of what PMO is, which is okay in my view. But let's talk about, see what the others have said. This is research was done by PMI, by Professor Brian Hobbs, about 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, I had 2 surveys, one of them from a human system, but because of the time, I had to cut only to a couple of slides. No consensus on the value of PMO. Would you agree with that? Okay. Perception of high, low value are based on different characteristics. Again, what does a PMO need to be? Most PMOs are standalone. Basically, highlight the discussion that the PMO exists, but probably nobody knows what it does. PMOs are short-lived. Most surveys I've seen on PMOs, how long do you think the PMO survive? 5 years? No, that's a temporary PMO. Let's talk about that. There are 2 types of PMOs. Okay, actually, there shouldn't be 2 types of PMOs, but because the word PMO is sexy, let's put it that way, trendy, okay, there are 2 types of PMO. There are temporary PMOs, which is in my background, we never call them PMOs, we call them project management teams. Okay, these are the organization, the team that is established to manage a specific project or program. So basically, a program management team or a project management team, obviously in that case, this is temporary, because the purpose of this team is to manage a single project or program, and once that project is done, of course, that PMO is dismantled. But most PMOs we talk about are organizational PMOs, so they should be not specific to a given project. Okay, so if we agree on that, at least for the discussion purposes here, how long a PMO would last? You said 5 years. Anyone else think that's more than 5 years?
Why would we put a limit for how much it would last?
I'm sorry?
Why would we put a limit for how much it would
No, I didn't say we put a limit. I'm talking about based on current studies. A typical PMO, how long would it last? If it's not project specific, it's organization. Guys, let me clarify. There's a microphone there. Before you speak, let me just highlight the question, make sure that everybody understands the question. I'm not talking about how long it should last. I'm talking about today, based on actual research, based on actual data, typical PMO that were established, how long did they last?
It's lasting, but it's facing problems, of course.
It's lasting, but it's facing problems.
Yes.
2 years. Most research will tell you 2 to 3 years. 50% of one research I was actually reading recently, 50% of PMOs failed within 3 years. Another research I read a few years ago is basically about 2/3 of PMO do not survive more than 2 years. Why?
The management don't see the value of it.
There is no value. So they created a bureaucracy, they created a headache, they created a police force, they created something where organizations don't see value, so bye-bye. Okay? But this is the current state of research. This is why if I go back one slide, basically this is the current state of practice based on PMO research. I'm just summarizing in these 2 slides here. Okay? So PMOs are short-lived. Why? Because they're not proving value. Something is wrong. Okay? More mandate cover either most or few projects. Okay? PMO houses few or all project manager. Okay? This is maybe one difference when we talk about project management department. I came from an organization, we had 3,000 people in project management. We had 9 departments for project management. We had an executive VP for project management. Now, of course, that's oil and gas. Okay? We did not have a PMO. We had a project management business unit, headed by VP, with 9 departments under him. Each department is responsible for the geographical area of project we execute. We had about 1,300 employees that are our employees, and about 1,800 seconded people that were basically work under our supervision. Okay? This is obviously oil and gas in the region, Saudi Aramco. Okay? About 3,000 people in the project management departments. And a company like Aramco did not have a PMO. If you go to oil and gas companies here in the region, Kuwait, UAE, you probably will never find the title PMO.
Maybe most projects are of the same nature. Most projects and these companies are of the same nature.
Yeah, oil and gas, production, engineering, construction project, capital, what we call capital intensive project. Okay? So obviously in those cases, all project managers report there. But most PMOs that we know today, that we hear when we hear the word PMOs, I would be surprised if there is a project manager that even is that PMO. What I mean by a project manager, I mean someone who is actually managing project, not have the title of project manager and sitting in the PMO as a project manager or a department manager or a PMO manager. Okay. Most PM have small staff, or should be PMO, sorry, apart from project manager. So what we've seen, I think somebody said this, maybe 1 or 2 people in a PMO. Okay. PMO authority is mostly shared. Shared with who? Obviously with other organizational unit. Important functions are determined by the need of the specific organizational context. Location of PMO has an impact. And I don't want to read the slide for you. You know, when you can read them. And if you want more slides from this research, I'll be happy to share with you. Okay, and you can do a research on it as well, and you can download the full research on the PMO. Obviously, there are some good things and there are some bad things. If I shift, okay, we talked a little bit about this. What do you think PMO failure, challenge? Notice what I'm using words here. I'm very careful with my words, right? Failure, challenges, or short life? Why? You already answered. No value. Anyone else?
For example, if there is any cuts of head counts, the first...
Microphone so everybody can hear you.
If there will be, for example, reducing the head counts, the first thing they will look to the administration part or the administration staff, and the first thing also they will look to the PMO. So why do I need a PMO? I don't need a PMO. I just will keep the project managers, and that's it. For example.
Okay.
Because of they don't know the value of the PMO.
Let me be a bit arrogant here for a second. Would anyone on the organization dare to say, we do not need an HR department? Would anyone in the organization dare to say, even the chairman or the CEO, that I don't need an HR department? I do not need a finance department. back to this. There is someone in the back, all the way.
Sorry, just myself, as mentioned earlier, you mentioned about from the oil and gas, and myself, I'm from oil and gas. One of the reasons that normally the PMOs doesn't succeed actually just on that one is because of if it is a group companies under that one, each company they have their own setup and all these things. When they see the PMO is from the corporate level, always there is a resistance actually. Sometimes as a CEO, group CEO, they do a mandate for PMOs, which is to be throughout the group of companies. Let's say, for example, in oil and gas, you have refinery, you have terminaling business, and you have different. They have their own setup of engineering. They don't want anybody from the corporate to come and interfere in their business.
That's fine.
So always, just the challenges because of the resistance, because of the egos, which each business unit they have their own systems and all these things. In our case, also that it was a mandate, it was issued from the CEO, but it slowly died.
I'll share something on this. 10 years ago when I started Sukat, there's a group of companies, similar scenario, they asked us to come and investigate whether we can implement PMO for them in every one of their entities. And as we went to meet with the CEOs of these companies, and with the business excellence team from the group company, we went to meet one of the CEOs. He kicked us out of his office. He said, I don't need you. 3 years later, his company was dismantled. Okay? Now, this company worked in capital project. All what they do is build project, spending billions of dollars on project. And even at that level, the arrogance have reached to the level that we don't need project management. Okay? We can outsource it. And of course, that company did not last.
Sorry, to the best of my knowledge, I think we cannot separate some responsibility of project management, especially in one department, like PMOs or something. And I think there are some various responsibility in other departments, like financial, like HR. This is related to the project management. Absolutely. And I think if we think about the quality management and total quality management system, we need in project management total project management system in an organization. That's related and interact with PMO, I think, needs to interact with other departments. And if you try to separate the responsibility of project management, this reason, it's the main reason for failure of PMOs.
I'm glad you asked that question, because I have misled you in a way with the word I used. I said project management department. Okay? What I mean, a project management department like a finance department. So to build on this question, and when it comes to finance, of course, not everybody that work with financial related issues sit in the finance department. You know, in the finance department, there are policies that are administered by the line manager, administered by the other department. So basically, when I talk about project management department, is to have a role, like an HR department, like a finance department, that is on project management, policies, governance, guideline, across the whole organization, regardless where the people sit. So I'm not advocating that everyone who works on project must sit in the PMO or the project management department. What I'm advocating is a project management function, if you wish. Okay? That is central. Like there is a CIO or a CFO, or nowadays we have Chief Innovation Officer, Chief Knowledge Officer. I like to see a CPO role. That's the idea. Okay? So we're not advocating that everyone in project working on project. Of course, that's not possible. Okay? There are a lot of projects that could be done by the line manager, as long as the governance is done by some project management function that sits out there. So just to clarify the message here, we are not advocating one department, everybody sit there. Otherwise, guess what happened? Probably 80% of the company will sit in that department. Because I'm sure, regardless what you do in life, whether you work in marketing or sales or whatever, you work on projects. You know, I have a very small company, and my marketing team have to work on, whenever they do marketing project, they follow project management rule. So if we follow project management rules, then technically everybody is in the project management department. And that's not what we're advocating. We're advocating a function that has value and power, so no one can dare say, I do not need project management in the organization. That's utopia, maybe. Maybe one day, hopefully we will reach the stage where across organizations that does project, okay, outside the oil and gas, that we see where project management is a core function that is essential, that is not the first thing we think about dismantling when times goes rough.
I just have two things to say. First of all, I like the fact that you compared the existence of project management, or the PMO, to the existence of HR and finance. And no one can say that we cannot have HR or we cannot have finance. Actually, it's kind of true, because these functions cannot not exist in any company. They are common support functions that have to exist in every company. But when you talk about PMOs, actually, not every company can have a PMO. It depends on the nature of the company, whether it's a projectized company or not. So some companies do not even require the existence of the PMO. And that's why people assume that, okay, so maybe I don't need a PMO. Even if they do need a PMO, they would assume that maybe I do not need a PMO. Because it's not a mandatory thing to have. Now that is the first thing. The second thing I wanted to clarify is that, actually I want to answer the first question you asked, why do PMOs fail? I think one of the major mistakes that usually PMO setups go through is that they do not assess the current maturity of the organization to have a PMO and what current practices exist in the company that are similar to project management, and how can I take it from there to reach the target level I want to reach. Most people who actually set up PMOs, they want to do everything from the first shot, and that's the reason that mainly they fail, right?
I agree, and you will see that later in the presentation. Just a quick answer on this. This organization that hired us to do PMOs for them across their organization, they have 7 companies. And from the beginning we told them 2 of those companies do not need PMOs. So yes, absolutely right. Not every company may need a PMO. Okay? To me, unless a company spends a lot of money on projects, okay, and you do projects, then probably you do not need project management department or a function. Probably it's a waste. Probably it's another level of bureaucracy. So I'm not one of those people who advocate that one answer fits all. It doesn't. You've got to look at each situation, and later on in the presentation you will see some on this. Please, I'll take the last comment there.
Yeah. If project management procedures have been applied all through across the organization, in each and every department, then what is the point of having PMO or independently?
That's what I just said. I'm not saying every organization needs a PMO. If you have a project management procedure and system that is across the whole organization and people follow it, you probably do not need a PMO.
I just want to highlight the case you just said.
Yeah, but my question to you would be, who set those procedures? Who is owning those procedures? Who is updating them?
PM specialist or PM?
No, but if you have an organization with probably 20 people work on project management, when you have more than one person or one unit responsible for something, it doesn't get done. This is the reality of life. So we need someone to own, maybe a person. Basically project management could be you have one top expert in project management, and that person will own all the company process-related project management, update them, maintain them, and then everybody else in the organization use them. That's fine. Remember, I'm not advocating, just be clear, I'm going to repeat myself. I'm not advocating a bureaucracy. I'm not advocating a department that has 50% of the employees in the company. Depending on the size of the company, it could be one person part-time, or it could be 3,000 people. Yes, of course. Why not? Depending on the organizational context. Now, that's the question. That's where I will come to this later. Okay? I will come to on the different roles of the PMO. Okay, let me continue. Let's stay with the current state of practice, but now shift on the strategic aspect. Why strategic? Because most organizations today believe project management has become strategically important. Okay, maybe most organizations who still do not believe in project management, maybe they don't believe in this, but let's just humor me for the next few slides. Obviously, I'm of the view that project management is strategic in nature. Okay? As strategic as any other department, if not more. And I will highlight and I'll tell you why. But this is recently, PMI was the economist and Boston Consultant Group and Forrester, some big research firm. They have been publishing some short reports. So the next few slides come from those reports. One report is, you can research on this, basically the slide title is mostly the research paper. This one, Enabling Organizational Change. So this is one of the research. I forgot if it's by Economist or the Forrester Group, it was one of them. Nearly half of strategic initiatives fail. Actually, 20 years ago, I read a research by Harvard Business Review that says organizations do not have a problem in setting strategies. It's very easy to get a group of executives to go golfing somewhere for 3 days and come up with a strategic vision for the company. But when it comes to implementation, they fail. This was 20 years ago research from HBR that organizations fail in implementing strategy, not in formulating strategy. The same research that came from these organizations the last year or two, between 2013 and 14, that in a way is saying the same thing that we know from 20 years ago. Okay? So we are not learning our lessons. So nearly half of strategic initiatives fail. Successful organizations lead change through program and project management. And this is based on this research, which means we need a strategic perspective. How can we do that if our PMO is something that is the first thing to kill an organization? How can we reach the level where PMO are delivering excellence before they even reach delivering strategic benefits? So we have a long way to go, but this is basically, this is what the research is saying. Enabling sustainable change. My colleagues over here speaking on sustainability. Standardize project and program management practices. We need to have the standard process. You need to have that methodology, the procedure that everybody follow. Okay? If it doesn't exist, how do we do it? Okay? We need to engage the sponsor and senior management. We need to manage people through change. I'm gonna quickly go through some of these. This is another article or another research. Why good strategies fail. Senior executive recognize the importance of strategy implementation. So when you ask executives, said yes, strategy implementation is important, but a majority admit their companies fall short. 61% of executives are telling us they are failing short in implementing strategy. Okay? Companies that poorly align with strategy also report weaker financial results. Implementation is more important than strategy. This is the professor that was quoted in this publication. Implementation is more important than strategy formulation. Okay? And again, the HBR study from 20 years ago that says we fail in implementation. Emergent strategy might be more important than the deliberative approach. There's a lot of debate. There are two schools of thought in the world. Some that says you have to set the strategy by top guys and funnel it down to everybody in the organization. And it's set in stone. Some said no, you cannot set strategy in stone. You have to be reactive. You have to be interreactive. You have to watch what's going on. You have to adjust as you go on. You know, we can talk for 2 days about this point alone. Okay? So just leave it there. Are we doing, that's another quotation from the study, are we doing what we said we should be doing? Now, of course, this is executive level. They go to a retreat, they come up with strategic vision. Now, do they do it? And the reality is, they're not. Strategy is often fire and forget activity for the C-suite. Now, of course, you know, C-suite, we mean the executive. Back to implementation, only 17% of the study respondents says their company's implementation is seen as strategic. Only 17% of executives. These are research by executive, not by, you know, your average employee. Okay? The executive are saying 17% of them are saying that their company's implementation of their strategic vision is seen as strategic. Only 17%. And 56% consider implementation as operational tasks. So basically, the executive come up with a strategy, and it goes into the dead zone, the middle layers. I hope I'm not insulting anybody by this, okay? Because we are not formulating our strategy, our standard, our vision. We are not linking to that vision. We just, operation will get, we'll go with it. More. Another paper, strategic initiative management. In the current business environment, ability to develop and implement a new strategic initiative and change is becoming key differentiator. Whether you work in a small company like my company, or you work in a huge oil and gas company, or a huge conglomerate, these things apply. So size is not a question here, okay? Ability to develop and implement new initiative. Develop and implement new initiative, okay, is becoming key differentiator. That's what makes companies last. And of course, we're not saying if you don't do this, you will not succeed. A lot of companies have been around for 100 years. But the question is, can we do it better? Can we do it cheaper? Can we do it faster? That's where this is coming from. From one of these studies, the role of the PMO must become more strategic. So what this is telling us? That PMO today are not strategic. PMO today are probably operational. PMO today are support. Now, if your organization only wants to supporting PMO, that's so fine. Nothing wrong with that. Coordination role, support role, reporting role. Up to every organization can decide what is best for it. But if your executive want PMO to improve project management, a support office doesn't do it. Don't call it PMO, call it project support. Call it project support office. It's not a PMO. Because the word management have a meaning to it. You notice today I stick on words. Once I say project management office, okay, that technically, at least there has to be some management. If it's just reporting, where is the management? Okay, if it's just supporting by giving some templates, then again, where is the management? That's the key. Again, nothing wrong with having a project support office. Nothing wrong with having a project control office. Okay? Nothing wrong with having a project coordination office. You choose whatever you want. Okay? Whatever your organization needs. But don't, I know sometimes titles are nice and trendy, but let's be careful of not giving something more power than it is. Anyway, based on the study, they came up with 4 imperatives. Focus on critical initiative, institute smart and simple process. Okay? And I will come back with these a little bit later in more detail. Foster talent and capability. So we talk about people, right? We talk about process, we talk about people, and encourage a culture of change. This is from this study. More on this. Project and program management, critical for business success and strategy implementation, is kind of a repeat. Must focus on standardized system. This is where, basically this is setting the scene for the OPM that I will talk about later. Focus on standardized system, simple process, and tailored to a given context. So we're talking about tailoring, customization, right? Actually, on this handout, unfortunately, if I knew they were going to be printed in black and white, I would have printed it and brought it with me in color. If you look on the back of the things, this is a methodology that we have developed, and we call it customizable and adaptable methodology for managing projects. Okay? So it has to be customized, tailored to a given context. I cannot come and tell you, regardless where you work, regardless what you do, this is it. One size does not fit all in project management. You've got to, even within the same company, even in the same department. I come again from oil and gas background, and small project we manage them differently than medium-sized project and mega project. Each have its own processes even. Our procedures and guidelines are different. I mean, not too different, but they are different. Because even within the same type of project, we tailor based on the need of the projects. Of course, not every project we do differently, but every type of project It has its own process. So we need to have that kind of concept. And again, must build the capability and embrace change. So basically, this is a kind of summary for the previous few slides.
Sorry.
Yes?
If we upgrade project management as a strategic department or appropriate a strategic role to PMO, what's the relation between, for example, HR management for talent management, as you're right, and PMO and CEO? What's the relation of that?
It's a tough one to answer. There are two different ways of looking at it. There are two-way street here. Okay, let's talk about HR projects. If you are an HR department and you have HR project, ideally, if they are called HR project, we're not talking about the routine operation approving, leaves and approving every day. We're talking about project for HR. Okay, they should be managed according to the principle and the governance that is set by the PMO, by the corporate PMO, if you wish, or the corporate project management function.
I asked just about
Yeah, the opposite.
maturity of that.
Yeah, I'm talking about in a mature org, there are two-way street. One is HR is the receiver. Okay, HR as a function have to manage project. They have to manage it according to company culture and structure and governance and policies that are established by the corporate project management function. The other way around, where HR has a role to improve the talent of people involved in projects. And this is a partnering role. Okay, unless HR is strategic in nature, where they have a specialist in project management sit in HR, they don't know what is a proper professional development program to establish for a project management function. So they have to work it in partnership with the PMO. So the PMO, in order to promote and develop and train their project, the people that are involved in project, whether they are project manager or support role, regardless of their role, they need to put some kind of professional development program, career path approach. Usually, the people in project management do not know HR and career path and career framework. The people in HR know these things, so it has to be a partnering role.
I think it depends on organization maturity and also it depends on the organization charge. What do you think?
Yeah.
Because we cannot say for sure that PMO and other departments have management, HR and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Can easily work with PMO because as I work in many companies in my side, many departments believe that PMO is not okay.
Yeah.
They waste the time, they waste the money.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, there's no one size fits all. And when I give an answer, I'm giving an answer of what I think is the best scenario. Okay? And by the way, when I say this, I'm not saying, let me be clear here, I'm not being theoretical. Okay? When I'm explaining and some of the stuff that came here is what I've learned 20 years ago in my own company where I used to work. Okay? So some of the information I share with you, I did not invent. Okay? It's come from real life companies with higher level of maturity. So the key, yes, absolutely. The word maturity of organization is important. We talked about HR earlier that is not outsourced. I can tell you the company I worked with 20 years ago, HR is outsourced. We only have few people in HR in our company. The strategic HR only. My payroll 20 years ago used to come from a company that is outsourced payroll, outsourced training, everything was outsourced. And this is oil and gas in the US. 20 years ago, 25 years ago. Okay? Some companies here today in oil and gas, they tell you we're willing to outsource almost anything except project management. Okay, so basically, what I'm saying is all depend on your organization and the level of project you do. Again, if your organization does project, like small project, tiny project every once in a while, you don't need what I'm talking about. Let me be clear from now. I'm telling you right now, if you work in a small company, okay, personally, I have a small company and I do what I preach. I practice what I preach. But not every organization probably have a level of maturity in project or project management or enough expertise to justify having a projectized environment or having some type of organization. So it's up to you. But if you work in an organization, even if it's large, but most of your work is not project, it's typically operation, service oriented, maybe, and I say maybe, although I'm not believing what I'm saying. Okay? Because I believe any organization today, believe in project management. You know, one thing I would love to be able to do is to have project management, introduction to project management as a core course in every university curriculum, regardless what major you study. Okay? Because whatever you study, business, HR, finance, computer science, IT, computer engineering, civil engineering, pharmaceutical industry, you are going to work on project one time, sooner or later in your career, if not soon. So introduction, at least an introduction to project management, not a scheduling course, because some universities offer a scheduling course. Anyway, I don't want to sidetrack too much. Again, let's go focus now, start to shift the discussion from, okay, where are the problem today? The problem are, projects are failing, and they still fail at a high degree. Okay, now the word fail is too strong. Okay, so when we say the word fail, it could mean challenge. That means projects are complete, but maybe not maximum potential, or maybe not optimal solution. So they are finishing, maybe with some problem, maybe with some defect, maybe behind schedule, maybe over budget, although projects are fail. So we consider those, some people call them challenge projects, so in order not to use the word fail. When I'm using the word failure here, we are talking about failure, either disaster or failing in meeting some or many of the objectives of the project, although the project finished. Okay? So basically delivering less than optimal solution. And what we want to drive is a mindset. We want to drive a culture of delivering excellence. Total project management, if you wish. Like total quality management had become, you know, the key phrase 20 years ago. So what do we need? PMOs. Well, we just talked about PMOs. And what we said, most PMOs are failing as well. Failing to the degree where no value, so we dismantle them 2 years or 3 years later, or they are not delivering improved performance on managing projects. So they are not delivering to their mandate, or maybe if their mandate is only support, that's fine. But I'm talking about the PMO, a project management office. Okay, they're failing or they're not meeting the objective of improving performance in organization. Because to me, the purpose of a PMO should be to improve performance in the organization. Like total quality management is there to improve performance in the business process. So what do we do? Well, what's missing? And based on numerous research that we have conducted ourselves, in addition to research we've learned from other organizations around the world, like I shared with you, what we find is that what we really need is OPM. Which is, what is OPM? Organizational project management. We need to have a culture within the organization that project should be managed systematically. And when I say project, I could mean program, and could mean portfolios, it could mean the whole thing. We need an organizational system, like we talk about total quality management. Well, let's talk a little bit about maturity first, before I come back to the point I just made. What is OPM? I mean, obviously, OPM, Organization Project Management, but what does it mean to you?
It's a culture, capacity building. All the employees should speak in the same language, terminologies, thresholds, KPIs. The problem is that most of these terminologies are kept for the younger generation, and I have seen a gap between the middle management and the younger generation and most of the executives.
Okay.
So it's a matter of spreading the culture, spreading
Okay.
the terms, the science. It's a science.
Okay, good. Anyone else?
It's a fundamental shift that should cut across the boundaries of functional areas inside the organization, each having understood what are the CSF's critical success factors, and based on that we have KPIs, and those finally translate to the organizational objectives.
Okay.
Through project management.
Okay. One more?
It could be integrating project management inside the rules and regulations, as well as the policies and procedures for the company.
That's a key word there. Integrating project management in everything we do. I rephrase what you just said slightly. Okay?
I think
question? Just want to go through some question. What does it include? In a way, we talked about culture, enable, capacity building, KPIs, critical success factor, across organization, so we did cover this. How is OPM related or different from a PMO? That's the question.
It's not standalone.
Sorry?
It's not a standalone function. It's not.
So basically, in your view, PMO is standalone function.
This is how it's used.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're right. In general, that's the current reality. PMO often enough is perceived as standalone. Some people perceive it as a police force. Some people think it's just another layer of bureaucracy. And maybe there are so many names that we cannot even politely say today.
I think OPM should be an objective for the PMO.
Okay? Yep. I say that usually slightly differently. If we're going to have a PMO, not a PM function, because I don't believe in PMOs. I believe in PM function. The PM function will own the OPM. Will own the OPM as a system. But then the culture, and you remember some of the research that says we need to lead organization through change enablers. So the PM function, the corporate project management function, can drive, which if you want to call it PMO, can drive OPM across the organization. The science piece of it, okay, you mentioned science, the art piece of it, and in my view, I like to use the word the psychology piece of it. So technically, if we have a corporate project management function, that function should drive OPM, the organization. How is OPM related to project management methodology? Obviously. Anyone? Please. The microphone, because so we make sure we all hear you.
Yes, I would like just to elaborate on the previous question, OPM.
Yeah.
There are some definitions for the OPM, which is the combination of the portfolio management and the program management and project management.
Correct.
How does that fall within whatever you are just explaining?
Correct. But the question of what is program management? Programs are usually strategic initiative, collection of project, and portfolio is the same way. So when we talk about organizational project management, we're talking about how does the organization manage its project, program, and portfolio. Okay? Obviously, depends on the nature of the work. If you have project, then the OPM will include project management methodology. And if you do program, the OPM would include the program management methodology. And of course, you have the portfolio management methodology as well. So technically, whenever you use the word project management in the context of this discussion today, or OPM, we are talking about project, program, portfolio, PMOs, maturity, all of these combined. OPM is the organizational project management system. That's how the context of my discussion today. So it should own the portfolio management. It should own the program management. It should own the project management in the organization. Yes, please.
Normally what I have seen from the project portfolio management in some companies falls under the group finance of that organization, which is a little bit weird actually, just to look at that one.
Yeah, I mean, portfolio management typically, if it's done well, is usually linked between two major organizations today, if there is no OPM, finance and strategic planning. So what we say, if we do have a corporate project management function, it should own it. In collaboration with strategic planning and with finance. Because finance is the one who set the budget, and strategic planning is the one who put the long-term strategy for project and program. Yeah. So it should be quite integrated. Okay, maturity. When you talk about maturity of practice in project management, typically we talk about organizational maturity, and obviously we don't have enough time to talk about maturity today, but I just want to highlight a couple of slides. Higher level of maturity typically mean better project performance, better in terms of cost, schedule, quality, and you name it. There has been many research on this, and I'll share with you a couple of them. Maturity is linked to standardized approach. So the higher maturity in the organization, that means you have formalized system, procedures, guideline. Going back to the question you raised, project managers have a system, and they follow it. I'm emphasizing this. I've worked with huge organizations in the region over here, and they told me we have wonderful system in project management manual that probably is sick, But when you sit down with a project engineer and project manager, they don't even know what's in it. Okay? So that means we have created a book that sits on the shelf collecting dust, or something in the shared folder that nobody knows it existed. We have to implement. So we need to have the simple intelligent process. OPM is to build and sustain the approach. And that's the title of our workshop today. Building and sustaining project management. Because we can build it, you know, I can tell you most organizations today, they go hire a consultant, they build their OPM or they build their project management methodology, they leave, 2 years later, it's lost. So we don't want to build, we want to sustain. Let me just go quickly. This is a study was done at my ex-university on project management maturity. Usually we do it on 5 levels. Most models out in the market today that measure maturity, they talk about 5 levels. The names are mine because each organization have a different name for this. Like at the very beginning, you have an awareness about project management, then you learn project management, then you apply project management, you improve and you excel. Ideally, you know, I don't know how many people are there. Probably I've never heard of anybody that's level 5 yet. But again, there is no single model out there. But I think we would agree that as the organization adopt project management starts to become a culture. We have a procedure, we are learning, people know about methodology, process, how to do things, we can expect performance to improve. Would we agree with that statement? Okay.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work. This is why actually, if you want to make, you know, when you are going, I'm sure when you go through the slides, slide by slide, you will say again, nobody is implementing it.
And I didn't say nobody implementing this.
Just now you said that somebody has a consultant, makes a book, and then after 3 years it collects dust. Because if you are going to look at the project management the way that you look at total quality management, I think this is how you are looking at it. Total quality management is total quality management work because everybody sets his own. The finance will put their own procedures, the HR put their own procedures, and then they will follow. But project management, if you want to impose project management procedures on the HR and finance, because as you said, each one is having their own projects, and on the marketing, which are having their own projects, and on the construction people who are having their own project, and on all types of sections or divisions within the organization, and tell them this is the procedure that you should follow for project management coming from the OPM, they will not follow it because it doesn't work on them. It is not tailored to their projects.
Okay.
So total quality management works because each division puts its own procedure and follow it. But OPM doesn't work because each type of division is having its own deliverables, its own stakeholders, its own...
I'm going to challenge you a bit.
I'm trying to challenge you.
Okay. Did I say that?
Yeah, you said.
What did I answer you on HR, on when we talk about HR and career management?
As my friend said, for me, OPM is like total project management system, like total quality management system. When we are talking about HR department in a project-based company, own process is just served for project management, better project management service, I think. When we are talking about finance plan, when we are talking about cash flows, when we are talking about human resource management, project management, it's just related. It's just hired for project management, I think.
Sorry, this is operational.
No, you said some word that
projects within the other division.
No.
Projects within the finance division. Projects within the HR division. The HR division, let us say, that are having a project of like increasing the, let us say, the training or to reach certain KPIs. This is a project by itself. So can they implement the procedures that is for the construction?
Clear. You want clear in order to save time. Let me just say a few words. You're putting words in my mouth. I never said impose. Okay? I never said I'm going to have somebody in an ivory tower called the CPO set the policy and everybody in the organization fail. Okay? What I've been saying throughout this whole thing said it has to be tailored. It has to be customized. I also said even in the same department, you cannot use the same project management methodology.
Yes.
Okay? So let me be clear, just to make sure, because I probably failed in delivering the message. Okay? Project management must be tailored. I never said the corporate PMO function will establish the procedure and guideline for the whole organization by sitting in the ivory tower. Okay? Everything we do, it has to be done in collaborative manner. The same thing I talk about HR. The PMO cannot set HR policies. The same thing, HR cannot dictate project management system. So we have to work together to establish a career framework for project management. We have to work together to develop system, procedures, and guidelines that has to be custom fit. Again, the whole method, so basically just to make sure, I just even mentioned this, customizable and adaptable methodology for managing project. I've been in project management for 30 years, and I will dare to allow myself to say, I'm gonna come and build it for you and use it. If what I said, if you bring in someone to build your project management system, it's gonna sit on the shelf, collect dust. And I'm gonna have a slide on this a little bit later. Okay?
You need to have support.
Yeah, of course, we need to have a corporate support, we need to have the management support, we need to have a leadership.
Exactly. If you don't have support, all this is just paperwork.
Yeah.
Okay, this is crucial.
Yep.
No support, forget about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you don't have executive support, it's just a lot of fighting and spinning your wheels.
Only I add a point here. I agree with my colleagues' comments. Plus, we are talking here and not about the project management itself. We're talking about organization. We're working in the project management.
Yes.
As where each division should be working project management as the organization.
Yes.
That means will be different how they work
yes.
and other departments work.
The only thing, sorry, go ahead. The only thing I'll say it must come from top is the governance. Okay? Because there has to be some corporate function for project management that sits at the corporate level. They establish the governance, meaning the proper control system, the authorization, the approval level, the philosophy on change management, the philosophy on risk management. These things can come from top across the whole organization and has to be mandated across the whole organization. Otherwise, we are not delivering optimal. But in terms of methodology, procedures, guideline, it has to be custom fit to the organization, to the department. And as again, I repeat myself just so I'm not misunderstood. Even within the same department, we can have more than one system. For the small project, maybe there is something, we use the term small and simple project. I usually classify project into 3 classifications. The master of classification, there is Professor Lynn Crawford. She's in the conference here. She has a presentation later. She even developed a whole standard about how do you classify project. So if you're interested in classification of project, seek out Professor Crawford. She's the master on this. But I'm a simple man. I simplify project classification into 3 classes, or sometimes even 2. Small and simple, I mean very small project and simple, no complexity. Medium-sized project to moderate complexity, or large and complex. Now, large and complex for who? I can tell you, a small project in oil and gas is a mega project in an IT department. Okay, so small has to be relative to the organizational context. Again, the slide was there before, talking about organizational context.
You are talking about value of projects, and when you categorize projects, you are talking about the value.
No, how do you classify projects?
Yeah, it seems that
no, there are many ways you classify projects.
You are saying that because it is oil and gas, if it is high value, it is small value. And,
no, I didn't say. I mean, you're reading to me. You're here. Maybe I need to work on my speech. No, what I'm saying, in in oil and gas, anything less than $2 million, we don't even consider the project.
See, again, you are saying that the value of the project, and then you are putting, if it is low, less than a certain threshold, you are considering it as a small project.
Wait. In an organizational context, please, when we say la ilaha, kammil jimli. Okay? What I'm saying in an organizational context, let me give you an example. Okay, I work Aramco, I mentioned Aramco already. Okay? In Aramco, anything less than $2 million is not even considered a project. So what I'm saying, okay, even within a company like Aramco, or SABIC, or Exxon, okay, when they classify project, a small project for them is somewhere between $2 million to $50 million. They are managed differently than the project at $50 million to $50. Now, if I take this to a small organization, a project that is 3 months long, that probably require 4 people in an organization, has to be managed at a project that might take a year long and might need 50 people involved. So what I'm saying, whenever we classify a project, it has, even classification of project must fit the organizational context. So when I say the word small, I'm not putting value, absolute value. I'm not saying as small as $2 million across the world. I'm saying in an organization that does project in the millions of dollars, $2 million is a small project. So just I need to be careful of how I'm classifying project. No, I know. I mean, I've worked in project 5 million is a small project, and I've worked in organization 1 million is a mega project.
The return would be not just financial.
Yep.
They have other returns, actually, customer satisfaction.
I come back always to the same statement I've been saying. It has to fit the organizational context.
Just giving an example, there are many criteria you can take into consideration.
Yes, absolutely. So please do not, I hope, if I want to close this side of the discussion, do not take my word that is absolute reality. Just remember that I'm saying both things. I'm saying that it has to be customized, has to fit the organizational context. It has to be collaborative matter. Okay, otherwise it defeats the purpose. You know, even on project, if a project manager, I can tell you, even the people I train in my small organization, a marketing person, if the project manager are going to do the plan, I'll just tell you a story happened with me last week. One of my guys came to me with a project plan for an event we want to organize. I told him rejected. He told me why. Is it somebody I'm training as project manager? Said because you did it on your own. Go back and talk to the team that's going to be involved with you on this project, discuss it with them, update your plan, and come back to me. Okay? So even in my own organization, my tiny organization, 10, 11 employees, I would not allow one of my guys to sit down and do a project management plan on his own sitting in his office. It has to be a collaborative matter with the people who are going to be involved in managing the project and working the project. Otherwise, this guy is sitting in his ivory tower, which is his cubicle, and is setting guideline and everybody will follow me. I'm the boss, you follow me. Absolutely not acceptable. Okay? So I will never advocate a corporate project management function with the CPO sitting up there dictating policy on everybody and everybody follows the same way. Absolutely not. I just want to emphasize this point because I know I was misunderstood. Maybe I did not, it's probably my problem, I did not clarify the message properly. So let me go back to this. And again, I will be here after the event. I will stay as long as you need me. We can have a lot of discussion. Awareness and project maturity, again, we have performance. Now, typically, if we have an organization that is new to project management, we can expect the cost of project management. What happened to it if we are at 0 level and we want to go up this ladder? What happened to the cost of project management? It's going to increase. But guess what? This is based on this University of California at Berkeley research, okay? That once you reach about level 3, the costs start to go down. Why? Because now we have a standard procedure. Well, now we have the guideline. Now we have the system in place. So if I want to do a project charter, I don't have to go Google it. I can go up to my historical database and look at what is a charter or authorization document or PID, regardless what you call it. How does it look like? What is the procedure of writing one? What is the process flow chart? Maybe even some template that exists, maybe there is one for a project like mine, I can copy, paste, and modify. Okay? Obviously, in that case, I can do things much faster. And if I can do a document faster, I can do other document faster, I can execute the project faster. And this study shows that organizations that are close to level 3 actually are able to do project up to 60% faster. And 20 to 40% cheaper. This is another study from a private company called the Center of Business Practice, part of PM Solution in the US. And here they notice there are no level 4. They only have 3 levels. And they've noticed, except these first 2, on almost every category here, level 2 is better than level 1, and level 3 is better than level 2. And overall performance, you can notice, and if you look at the scale, that's significant. You know, that roughly, maybe this is what, 2.8? This may be about 3, and this may be about 3.4. Now, if you do it as ratio, significant growth. Okay? So whether you are looking at organization financial success, or shareholder satisfaction, or project aligned to strategy, or customer satisfaction, or whatever else, level 2 is better than level 1, and level 3 is better than level 2. So this is based on actual data from project. So we're not just theorizing here. We are showing a higher level. Obviously, when we talk about PMO or maturity, because they talk about PMO maturity over here, we're talking about project management maturity. So basically what we are saying is organization. Then when we look at real data that have higher level of maturity, they are performing much better than others. And so that's the call to action for us. That is why we need to change. If we are not doing this today, and we work in an organization where we spend money and time and effort, even in government sector, one of the things we see across the region over here in government sector, guess what? Employee time is non-countable, it's zero cost. We need to start accounting for our employee time. We need to start accounting for every penny that is spent on project, and every dirham. And today, across the region, not only UAE, most organizations, all the work that's done internally, the project cost is only the third-party cost, the external cost. Just check the time because I need to give you a break. Okay. In 15 minutes? Okay.
Can you audit?
Can we audit?
Yeah. I mean, now, if you want to prove to the upper management, which kind of level of maturity you reach, is there a way for somebody?
Yeah, there are assessments.
To come in and give you a certificate.
Yeah, they are. What? Absolutely.
In our organization, we have something an external officer comes in on the project management area, whereas they come into you as the project manager and they have a list of documents that you need to provide on the spot. One of the documents is PIP, one of the documents is business case, one of the documents is PO document. You need to be able to provide this all based on the level of the amount of documents you can provide. Means that either you're being audited currently or you're not doing your job as a project manager. So we as a company have that.
Yeah.
So maybe you guys can.
Yeah, let me.
Different than project management.
It's quite audit for project management.
I'm talking about auditing of the PMO maturity.
Yeah.
So this process has been, you can say, pushed by our PMO office. Because in our case, in our company, we have the PMO office and then we have the domains. Our domains have their own project managers, their own contracts. We all report to the PMO. So it's pushed by the PMO tailored as a process, audit process tailored for project management.
Let me build on that answer. In IT, there is something that was developed years ago called CMMI. Now, CMMI is mostly a global standard. Unfortunately, in project management today, there is no one standard that is very common. Like I just showed you 2 standards here. These guys have their own maturity model. UC Berkeley have their own maturity model. And there are probably 10 maturity models out in the industry. Okay, so one of the problem in maturity management assessment, if you're looking for a number, if you're looking for a number, one of the problems today is there is not one single organization or single standard that apply globally for project management. So if I come and do an assessment, not Mounir, if I bring in someone to do an assessment for you on, let's say, the Berkeley model, your score would be comparable to all the companies that were assessed or audited. The term we use assessment. Okay, they assess you based on their model. If these guys come and assess you, okay, they will assess it based on their own model. So they will compare you to your database. If you're interested in this, I think you need to speak to this other speaker there, Alicia Atkins. She used, or I think she still is, with a human system, and they have their own proprietary also maturity assessment models. One problem though, okay, and I'll warn you here to save you money. Many organizations are starting to work on project management and they want to do an assessment. I would say save your money. Because they're going to tell you what they're going to tell you. You have gaps, significant gaps all over the place. So why waste your money? Okay? If you start to implement project management system, probably in your organization you've been doing this for a while, then you have systems in place, then yes, you have something to assess. Because they're going to come and ask you exactly, you said you know how to do a charter or project authorization? Show me the procedure and the process for it. Prove to me, because in audit they need to prove, right? Okay, so unless you have these systems in place, they're going to come and tell you, oh, you have a gap here, and you have a gap there, and you have a gap there. You spent $20,000, and at the end of the day, they're going to tell you what you already know.
We're not talking, you have a roadmap.
Yeah.
Maturity. I just want to say, okay,
Yeah.
I reached this level of maturity, 1,
Yeah.
2, 3, 4. So
Then, unfortunately, you need to pick a company, and the company will assess you against its own database. There is no global database for that. Okay?
You have a checklist for project management? This is top level.
checklist in terms of
Roadmap?
what you mean in terms of what? Checklist. I have processes, I have templates, and I have business case, so there are some stuff.
Yeah. But again, what I'm saying is, if you do have something you feel that substantial, not significant, not high level necessarily, then it's worth it to get an assessment. But if not, if you're just starting or you have some thoughts here and there, or some practices not well documented, don't waste your money. Build it and then bring in someone to assess you. What I'm going to share with you, actually our own maturity model. But this is not designed to assess. It's designed to help you build and sustain. You want to assess, we can assess, we can bring in, do other assessment, but again, unfortunately, that there is no single kind of an organization that standardized assessment across the board.
Excuse me, there is of late, ISO has come out with 21,500.
Yes.
That is specific to project management. And that's built on PRINCE2 and PMI.
Yes.
Together on a broader level.
And IPMA.
IPMA. It will not check the maturity level as CMI does.
It's not designed for assessment.
Exactly. But it's designed for audits like 9001 and...
No, it's not designed for that. 21500, and now they are doing one for program management,
yes,
is designed as a general knowledge standard, not as an assessment standard. So it's not like 9000 or some of those that when ISO can come and assess you and certify you. Unfortunately, ISO doesn't have anything for project management for assessment purposes. They also have 31000 for risk management. Okay? But they don't have anything for project management, ISO doesn't have any assessments. Unfortunately, across the region, based on our experience and observation, most people here are not interested in methodologies. They're only interested in PMP certification, let's face it. The vast majority. I'm going to have a slide later, even PMI. Some of you who know me or follow me on the website, you find that I'm very critical of PMI. And PMI is participating here today. What I'm sharing here, I've been sharing this for 10 years. And finally, PMI this year came out with a standard that talks about the same thing. Okay. Across the region, I would say the vast majority of organizations today, if they're interested in project management, they're interested limited to certification. Even across Dubai and UAE, there are very few organizations that have really adopted project management. Okay? Of course, with some gaps, every organization has gaps, but at least some organizations are more mature than others. The general observation is organizations are not interested in methodology. They're not interested, whenever they want to talk about project management, they will say, let's build a PMO. They will hire, I think somebody said this earlier, they will hire a project manager or someone with experience in project manager. They're thinking that if you have experience in project manager, you must be a capable person to write the methodology. I'm not going to name this. I was just invited to speak with an organization here just last month. And I went there and said, we want you to help us build the PMO. And apparently the guy I was meeting with, okay, he was hired 3 months ago to build the PMO. He couldn't do it. So they called us. Then he told me, by the way, we hired a company to do templates for us. So here, and this is a major leading organization in the UAE. So here, first, they hired a person to build the PMO, couldn't do it 3 months later. So they hired a company to do templates for them. And while this organization was there, they're calling us for consultancy. They said, why do you need me? if you already have something like this. So unfortunately, going back to the discussion we started with this morning, project management is still in the baby steps status across the region. Obviously, in one country, UAE is more advanced probably than Lebanon. Lebanon is more advanced than Iraq. Okay, if you look from country to country, you will find differences in the level of project management. But even in a country like UAE, with all the infrastructure we see, very few organizations have really adopted project management, and they are working hard at it.
Where does KSA stand?
Sorry?
KSA, do you have?
KSA depends, again, where you are. Some of the companies are quite advanced. Some of the companies are still, project management is, PMP.
One question, please.
Yes.
Project management, this is project management office. Now you're talking about organizational project management. One question, I'll go back a little bit. Do you think, in a real manner and in a real sense, the project management companies contribute to the project in terms of time and in terms of money? I'm talking very pragmatic question, because if you go back just 10 years in the same place, or 12 years back, there was no trend of appointing the project manager, whatever is the size of the project. Even in the mega projects, we never used to appoint the project managers.
Yes.
The consultant used to perform all the duties and responsibilities entrusted to the consultant under the services agreement. And we used to see, I'm very poor in this country, the performance, the quality, and the people who used to work on the projects was far better than the people what we have, the quality of the people what we have now. And realistically, we have been finding that appointing a project manager's company, or rather delaying the project, they are working more or less like same thing what consultant is doing, they are duplicating, so one more layer comes in between, which what you call consumes more time to deliver the products. My question is, really, is these things are pragmatically contributing to the project in terms of money and the time? Because now you're talking about PMO, now you're going to another step ahead, organizational project management, which I perceive is just an arm of the project management office. Same thing, the project management office can be expanded or can be further elaborated as an organizational aspect.
One clarification, it's not an arm, okay? It is a part, remember OPM is a system. Okay, it's a system, procedure, policies, governance, guideline, okay, that must be established, managed, and sustained by a corporate project management function. So let's call it PMO for the discussion today. So it's not like an arm, of a department, okay? It's the project management function within an organization should own the project management system across the whole organization. In collaboration, in order not to be misunderstood, in collaboration, of course, with the appropriate department, because one size does not fit all. I haven't answered you, but I want to just clarify this point.
Before I want to go with you, what value-added components it adds to the project management office this year?
Well, in order not to theorize for you, I'm showing you data. Okay? I don't know if it is, I'm confused between this topic and I'm presenting on a couple of days from now. I have a slide, I don't know if it's here or there. So I'll mention it and if it's here, we'll skip it. I think in 2006 there was a conference, or 2008 conference, and one guy from Siemens. Anybody from Siemens here today? You work with them as well. And the presentation from Siemens, they talked about project management and the value of project management for them. And they have invested heavily into it about 10 years ago, before the presentation, so probably 14 years ago. And what he said is basically half of Siemens revenue, which is in the billions of dollars, we all know Siemens is all over the world, is contributed to project management. Okay? The data I'm showing you only two data points. UC Berkeley is only the #1 university in the US for engineering. Okay? And their maturity model by Professor Ibbs and others that shows clearly, based on actual data, not on some PhD research, that project, and there is a booklet on this called The Value of Project Management. You can actually find it, and you will find they give you percentages of maturity of how much project management has contributed to organization. Now this is, again, basically what I'm saying is across the world, project management has proven its strategic value. Now, of course, the level is different. Today, there are probably close to 1.5 million or 2 million people that are certified if you consider all the certification of project management. PMI have about 650,000, Prince 2 there is about 800,000, IPMA has I don't know how many. So there are a lot of project management certification out there. So if you look at all the people who are certified in one project management certification or another today, there are probably more than 1.5 million. Years ago, I heard a company like IBM have 14,000 people certified on their staff. Okay. The organization I came from a long time ago doesn't believe in external certification. We used to have our own internal program, which is a 10-year development program. 10 years. Okay. So the level of organizational maturity vary all over the world. Now, if I want to bring it back to the region over here, I'm going to say something I might upset some people in the audience. But I've been known to be very direct. What we are missing today over here is a national policy for project management. We still, even by rules of government, most major projects, I'm talking about in the infrastructure, major project, oil and gas, real estate, are managed by what we call PMCs, like what you mentioned, external consultant. I have not met a single organization, whether they are client or not, who have not complained about those PMCs. Yet, we continue to outsource our project management to external companies. Just 1 second. I'm going to go back to the gentleman, something said earlier. We need to build the capacity. Organization in the region need to build that capacity. Again, if project management is not a core function for you, outsource it. Okay? Many of the organizations around the world today, when they talk about outsourcing, they look at, is this function, whatever it is, HR, finance, IT, is it a core function? If it is core function, you don't outsource. If it's not a core function, outsource. Okay? Project management, unfortunately, is not a core function yet, so we continue to outsource it. And we outsource it, and unfortunately, the failure rate is still high. I one time went to an organization and said, I will be willing to put my whole organization to work for you for free if you give me percent of what I save you. Not percent of what your income, of what I save you.
There is no problem. Evaluation being done at the end of the project.
No.
To assess, okay, the appointment of the project managers costed so much amount, and what is the saving the project managers have really contributed to the project. Look, this doesn't happen. The client, what he feels, fine, if they are bad, we'll go to another project manager for our next project. This is the thing.
Unfortunately, what I'm saying is that we have many organizations over here, across the board, we outsource project management, but we don't take the time to build the capacity in-house. So if I don't have the skills, and I'm gonna hire you as a project management consultant to do for me, or project manager to manage my project, how would I even know whether you're doing a good job or not? I mean, I'm telling you, I don't want to name names. I have not met a single organization in the UAE or Saudi or outside that have used these global companies to manage their mega project, and they don't complain about them. I've seen proposals where these top national companies, they actually have the name of another client in their proposal. Okay. Unfortunately, again, project management is still not perceived as a strategic core function across the region. Across the region. And for a person who has spent all my career, all my life in project management, it's a dream. Been trying for 10 years to promote it. We are making some successes here and there, but it's a major fight. We need to build that capacity.
I have a question for you. I don't know if it's early or it's time to ask it. If you want to build the capacity, would you invest in the people internally in your organization, or would you invest in the people plus the setup and the tools?
I'm giving you the quick answer now and the detailed answer later. People, process, and tools. You cannot focus on one. You cannot. I'm a training, most of my revenue as a company comes from training. You know what I tell my client first? Money spent on training is a waste. I make my living out of training. Okay? So I'm shooting myself in the foot when I say this to client. Fortunately, clients don't believe me. Okay? Because we still do a lot of training. But yes, we talk about build the process first and then train according to the process. But most organizations here in the region don't mind spending a lot of money on training, even repeated training, but they don't spend money on building the process. We'll take 2 questions and we'll take a break.
When you say national, do you mean, when you say a national project management policy, you mean municipalities or
national, country level?
Yes, municipalities, ministries.
Country level.
Yes, what does the country, I'm asking, I want to know, what does the country have to do? In Saudi Arabia sometimes they get Aramco to manage a project.
Yeah, why?
Managing cost, for example.
Why?
Because others fail.
Yeah, because...
Yes, but how does a country do a project management?
How many PMPs in the room? Okay, I'm gonna hide after this so you don't hit me. Most organizations go after PMP thinking, oh, once you train PMPs, those PMPs can manage their projects. PMI is saying today, they're not saying this, but indirectly they're saying it doesn't work. You need to build the process. So when I say national, okay, ideally, I would like to see it at the country level. Because if you look around Saudi Arabia, UAE, Lebanon, any country, you know, whether it is, you know, Ministry of Works, Ministry of Housing, Ministry of Transportation, okay, how much money is spent on project by this organization? Okay? I mean, look, today in Dubai, okay, the organizer of this conference, we have RTA and we have DIWA. Each one of them has their own system. Why can't we have a Dubai government, if we're not talking about UAE national? Dubai government standard for project management, instead of depending on a Pumbag guy that is incomplete.
Because it has to be tailored to each.
No, you said, remember, when I say something like this, you put the governance. You know, there are levels of project management, okay? In finance department, the finance department, there are two different, there are strategic aspect and there are the operational aspect. So when I talk about governance, we're talking about standard system, okay, for the governance control structure and the philosophy and policies on change, on risk, on these things. We set them, those are set by, at the government level, for government project, okay? And then each organization, what I'm saying each organization, not each organization, each type of projects. Each type of project. Because I can tell you whether you are Ministry of Housing or the Ministry of Labor or the Ministry of Works. You have capital project, you have, you know, construction project. What's the difference between building a road, okay, and building a building? There are a lot of common principles. So typical, when we say customize, you can customize to the type of project. So similar type of project, regardless by what ministry are done, they should be done according to the same standard. This is what when I say to fit the organizational context, we're talking about organizational context and the domain and the type of project of work, right? A marketing project is a marketing project. I'm talking about within government or any type of project. That's what we're trying to advocate. We're not saying, let me again be careful, I'm not saying that has to be one standard detailed procedure with process map that fit the culture from top to bottom. No, there are some guidelines established at the high level. Some guideline, it could be empowered to be modified by an organization, by a ministry, and some could be modified by a department, and some could be even allowed to the project manager to modify, if justified. You know, if you read my books, we'll talk about that. I have a chapter, 2-3 chapters dedicated to this topic. And what we say is that it has to be customized. Even the project manager will have the power to recommend change. So if I'm working as a project manager and my project has some unique feature, does not fit the company methodology or policies, I don't have the power to change it on my own, because otherwise you created chaos. I will have the power to justify and recommend the change, and as long, my recommendation, one person above me approve my request, then we will make the change. So we can even custom fit to the project specific need.
How can this help in adding value
To the
PMCs, because what governs this discussion is the complaints about the PMC performance, right?
No. PMP is one issue.
The PMCs. The PMCs.
Oh, the PMCs. Okay. Yeah.
So how can this governance add value to the performance of the PMCs? We can still have the process in place.
Yeah.
And it's not implemented.
Well, no, I mean, here what we have, organization need to make a decision. Do I need to build my own capacity? If I build my own capacity, I don't need PMCs. Or I will hire them as supplemental to my manpower.
The government has a framework for project management.
Yeah.
Will this lead to having more capacities within the organization to...
It depends on what you do. For example, I work with some ministries in Iraq today. Okay? And most ministries we work with, we find out that they have, because they're still more like the socialist culture in terms of business. So every ministry will have 10 or 15 companies work under it. Like we just recently met with one of those ministries, and they have one company out of their 14 companies that is responsible for all their engineering and construction project. So instead of outsourcing to an external company, they have their own company to do this. Okay, now is it good, is it bad? It have bad and good and bad. Okay, so there isn't, again, I cannot advocate one single solution. It has to be custom fit, but I'm saying if organization have a large percentage of money being spent on project, it's worth it to build your own capacity. The ideal way is to build your own capacity so you can manage your own project. If you need help, you can always bring supplemental manpower. It's like what company like Aramco and Exxon and these global companies do. They bring in supplemental manpower to work under their supervision on their system. So my system in Exxon, my system in Aramco, I'll bring in people to help me. Okay? Or this is the ideal way. The other way is at least to build enough capacity that if I have to hire a PMC, at least I can monitor this PMC performance. And they cannot cheat me, let's be clear. Cheat me not in a bad way, it means on purpose they want to cheat me. But what we've seen over here is a lot of issues. Let me leave it at there, you get the point. You have a question and we'll take a break or no?
I was just going to comment about the nation or national way of managing. To put it into application or implementation would be something like the government award for excellence or something like this to set up a target. So at least to start with, and then after a few years this becomes a standard and everybody goes.
Anybody gonna kick me out of the country today? I'll tell you one thing. You know what's really saddened me? Is there are government awards here for best projects. But there are no project management system. Okay?
If it's done properly for a country that's still developing, as UAE, the economy, and it's a relatively small country where you can still manage amount of work and performance, would be something like setting up something that's for the government to start with, setting up in the ideal format, sort of an award or like a
set up the process first. Let's move away from award and the culture of award.
Not the word award, but some sort of like standard that people like ministries would start to apply for it, and then when it proves to be functional or practical, then they can sort of like with a 20 years plan, that becomes the standard, not the...
Yes, and you said the keyword, 20 years from now. Yes, absolutely. It's not something you can do in 1, 2, 3, or 5 years. Build for the long term.
Any examples? I mean, okay.
Huh?
Any examples in the U.S., for instance?
No, in the U.S.
Do they have a
Government does.
standardized?
Government does. Okay? I mean, not every, remember, national government. The national government in the U.S., from the FBI to the CIA to the military, use project management.
Yeah, they use.
And who invented most of the project management today? We owe it to the defense industry in the U.S. as a government.
Yes, but it's the national policy. They have to abide to, and like you said, according to each and every project.
To be honest, I don't know. I don't know now today if there is one. No, when I say, I mean, of course, the U.S., remember, I don't know if you know how much you know about the U.S. U.S. government, federal government is different than the state government. The U.S. government cannot mandate anything on anybody. Okay? The U.S. government, I know they practice project management, and I know they have.
They might have recommended.
Yeah, but I don't. To be totally honest with you, I don't know if a country like the U.S. It has a national standard for project management that apply across all government. But let's be careful here. The US is 300, 400 million people, okay? And the US is, I know they spend a lot of money, but per capita, it doesn't even come near to what we're spending in the region over here. So what I'm saying is because in this region, we are still growing and project management is still in the baby stage, we can afford, the private sector, the small companies usually do not have enough power and money to spend and invest into project management. So we can take some leadership into this area where we're spending billions of dollars. You know, the reason I say this, because what I know for sure, most projects here, okay, across the region, are not achieving their objective fully. They are finished behind schedule, over budget, with some problem, some defect. Now, of course, I cannot be generalized. I cannot say everywhere. But in general, this is the experience we've seen in the region. So there is fundamental weakness in the area of project management because we depend on these PMCs. The PMCs depend on the local hired workforce that come from all over the world. Okay? And at the end of the day, you know, we don't have a proper system. Okay? I share with you one story on this. A few years ago, we went to a company, a contractor to work with, said, okay, quality is important. Said, yes, quality is number one for us. Can you show us your quality plan? We asked a question. Said, let us call the quality manager. The project manager could not even show us the quality plan. But quality is number one in this company. So we need to move away from the concept of knowing doing gaps. We know project management is good. We know project fails. We know what they fail. Let's go back to what we started today. So what are we doing about it? Let's take a break. According to my watch, I have 10:30. We are, because we were late this morning, so they gave us an extra time. So if we take about 20 minutes, and then we will have 1 more hour to close the workshop. For continual improvement. So when I critique a little bit, the purpose is to always look for continual improvement. How can we improve on what we have today? Whether we are talking about Dubai as a city, or Emirates, or UAE, or your private company, or your own business. The whole idea is that how can we improve on what we have? If we already have project management system in our organization, how can we take it to another level? How can we make it more powerful? How can we make it more strategic? If we don't have project management in our organization, can we adopt some of the principles of project management? And I say some. For those of you who were here earlier and they were able to get my book, the Arabic one. The Arabic one is written as a story. So half the book is a story. I'm telling you stories, nothing to do with project management. But we explain a simple methodology in a story format. Like a bunch of friends sitting together at dinner, walking around the villages, speaking about project management. And the reason we did this is to introduce project management to an audience that doesn't have experience in project management. So we tried to take what some people perceive a dry material into easy to read kind of material. The second book, and this book in Arabic is available in English as well. The second book is written more as now you are in project management, okay, but you want to take project management to the next level. How can we establish a methodology for managing project? How can we build a project management methodology? How can we customize the methodology? How can we adapt the methodology to our organization? Adopt and adapt. So basically, what we need to look for is always be on the lookout for continual improvement in everything we do. So basically, we started today with, we know project, we know there are failures, and I mentioned the word failure, I'm using in a strong sense here, because it could also mean projects that are challenged. They're not necessarily failed, they are completed, but they're completed over budget. Now, I know at the break people told me, well, but it's not only Dubai or UAE, it's the whole world. Well, I come from an environment that probably was high mature in project management, where on average our projects were on budget. On average our projects were, and when I say on average, I mean the majority of our projects are on budget, plus or minus 5 to 10%. Whereas the vast majority of our projects, and regardless whether they're small or mega projects, they were on schedule. Plus or minus, again, 5 to 10% is considered normal and acceptable variation. Okay? But most organizations that are new to project management still are delivering a project with substantial issues and challenges. There are some organizations outside in the booths, they are working on projects worth billions of dollars. Now, if you have a project that is $10 billion worth, just think about this. If you can save 1%, 1%, okay? One organization outside, their phase 1 of their project is $10 billion. Okay? 1% saving. How many schools can we build for that? Okay, that's the point. So I'm not intending to be critical or critique what we're doing. It's amazing what happened established in the UAE. I don't think anybody can argue or debate what the UAE have delivered over the last 20 years and compared to other countries in the region. You know, I come from Lebanon, and I wish we can achieve fraction of what the UAE or Dubai has achieved. So please, I want to make sure that, again, the word context. Just formality. I know people are asking for the slides, and they ask me, I've authorized the forum to basically send you the slide. But again, you can also contact us, and we will be posting this on our website, and we will be posting this on SlideShare, so you will have access to this. There are some other information here that has much more detail I can show on a slide. If you email me, I'll be happy to share what I can. I mean, obviously some information that probably will be sensitive. Other than that, I'm very open usually with sharing. So you can contact me, that stuff that is not on the slide. If you want to go know more about detail about anything that I talked about over here, email me. If I have something for it, I will share. And probably is already shared on our website. So I'm gonna skip some slides. I wanna stay with this one for a second because we're talking about PMO, and then how do we transform from PMO to OPM? From the concept of PMO as an office to OPM as a culture. Okay? And if you look at the role of what we call PMO continuum or PMO function, there are different roles. You know, usually we have this in a circular format. And we can have, some PMOs are only about reporting. Some PMOs, maybe they do provide training support. Some PMOs are involved in career management. Some of this example discussion we had earlier here. Some PMOs are doing project coordination. Some PMOs could go as far as this right hand. Obviously, as we can expect, the more we go toward the right, the more strategic the PMO is, and typically help in increasing maturity in organization. Okay. Now, what does it mean? Something I didn't talk about yet. Does it mean organizations should have one PMO? Absolutely not. Organization could have you could have PMOs in every department. If you have a large organization that have probably a department that have 100 employees or 200 employees in a department. You know, I came once I worked for an organization where we have 300 employees in one department. Okay? Some departments are quite huge. And if this department does a lot of projects, it could have its own little PMO. Okay? As align with the corporate PMO or with the strategic PMO, whatever you call it. So corporate PMO might have a role, and a department PMO might have a different role. And each one of them, as long as they align. So when I talked about HR department does their own project, I'm not saying HR department. Let's talk again. I want to give example from where we are. We are in Jumeirah. You know, you guys know that Medina Jumeirah, for those who know, is part of the Jumeirah group, which is part of the Dubai Holding. Now let's talk about the Jumeirah group, a company with probably 11,000, 12,000 employees. I'm not sure how many there are. Okay? Would it be sane, I'm not going to say logical, would it be sane to expect their HR department or their IT department or their construction department to follow the same process? Absolutely not. A month ago, I was doing a course in Dubai. I had 3 people from Jumeirah in my class. One was responsible for the CYRS program, which is, you know, the royalty program. One comes from strategic planning, and one comes from finance. Now, they all want to learn about the fundamental of project management, but each one of them comes from a totally different department. So basically, okay, would it be fair to even suggest, to impose on these people the same way to do project? Anybody who proposes this doesn't understand project management. So we've got to look at how can we customize and how can we build system. If we want to have a PMO, what is the role of the PMO? Is coordination all the company need? Great. Don't call it project management office, call it project coordination office. Now again, I'm not going to go back to the naming issue, but the idea is if, and I emphasize, if the organization want their project management office to lead the transformation of the company and the way they handle project, you need to go to the right side. Sorry. You will never be able to do it if you're on the left side. Now, this might be an opinion, might be a biased opinion. We can debate this if you like. But by being supportive, by even offering career management suggestion and guideline and training program is not enough. You've got to go at least to here. Project management has to be strategic if it is to play a strategic role. Again, it all function of what your organization needs. If you are totally new to project management, start here. Remember, I think you mentioned earlier, yes, we cannot think of 1 year. We need to think 5, 10, 15, 20 years. To reach higher level of maturity is not something, even if you have the top management with you, it's not something you can achieve in 2, 3 years or 4 years. Changing culture organization to make OPM as a mindset, it is a long-term process. So, but you know what's funny? We don't take that first step. I mean, unless your organization is going to be for 5 years, temporary organization, and they're going to be dissolved, then who cares? But if you want your organization to last, now I'm not, be careful again because I have to watch my language. I'm not saying without project management you don't last. There are companies been around for 100 years and they just discovered project management. Project management is not magic. Project management is not the answer for all ills. Project management does not solve all organizational problems. Project management does not solve corruption or bureaucracy if it exists. Okay? Project management does not resolve the issues if you don't have competent staffing because of whatever reason. Okay? Proper project management help us do what we do better, cheaper, faster. So we're not saying now we are bad and, oh, we implemented PMO and everything's going to be great tomorrow morning. No, it's not. Okay? That's the message. If we get nothing else from today's workshop, that's the message. Project management helps us improve. And again, this is, I know some people may not accept what I'm saying, but I'm sharing some data from real all over the world, from project. I shared studies were done in the US, but I can show you everywhere else. There are studies that project management have contributed. Otherwise, even here in UAE, we would not be doing this forum today. If the leadership in Dubai with DO and RTA and the executive office did not believe project management have reached a level where we need to start having conferences on project management. This is the first conference on project management, real conference. Now I know in May there was a conference for PMI here, but that wasn't done for Dubai, it was done because part of the EMEA region. So I'm gonna cut some slides, and then again you will be able to see them, and you will even, if you like, I can even share more slides with you. I want to shift to, okay, what is the solution? I'm going to highlight something that PMI talked about, published this year, 2014. They published a guide that's called Implementing Organizational Project Management Practice Guide. It was just published, again, probably April or March timeframe. I'm just going to share with you a couple of quotations. This is why I picked on the PMP earlier. More organizations are starting to recognize, and of course, this is a global, so it's nothing to do with the region. Okay, so please don't misunderstand me in that I'm saying we are bad, okay, and everybody else is good, all right? And most of the research I showed you is global research, it's not local. More organizations are starting to recognize that project management means more than having good project managers. You know how I read this? For 30 years, PMI, and I know some people here belong to PMI, have been promoting PMP, 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 PMP. One of the officer in one of the ministries here in the region told me, Mounir, a few years ago, now we have 50 PMPs in our company. And guess what? I said, what? He said, they still don't know how to manage projects. When I used to say this, I know PMP in the room get angry with me. Okay? Look, there are a lot of great PMPs out there. And a lot of PMPs out there, to borrow a quotation from online, as one of the people put on a LinkedIn group, said there are some PMPs out there that can recite to you the PMBOK, but they cannot manage a hot dog stand. This is not my word. This is something on an online forum that was said about a year ago. There are some great PMPs, and there are great PGMPs, and there are great Prince 2 practitioner, and there are great IPMA certified individual, and there are those who don't even know how to manage projects. Okay? Yes, they know the PMBOK, but I can tell you, and I've done surveys on this, 70% of the PMPs do not understand the concept of a project lifecycle. And this is based on actual research. Okay, so it's not meant to be critical. It's meant to be, okay, that a PMBOK guide is not enough. One time I was saying this in a conference in Lebanon. One of the guys almost, if he could beat me up, he could have beat me up. Why? Because I said PMI is not the only authority on project management. That guy got offended. When I published on my blog, I said the PMBOK is not enough. You can get all these PMI loyalists basically start screaming at me that you're arrogant or you're stupid or you don't know what you're talking about. Open the PMBOK guide. Anyone PMP in the room today. When you go home today, open your PMBOK guide. What does it say? The PMBOK? No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. PMBOK is not a methodology. It's not best practice and is incomplete. Go read chapter 1 of the PMBOK guide today. Chapter 1 and chapter 2 and read the notice page. PMI will tell you this is not a methodology. PMI, the PMBOK guide, this is what it says. It talks about common practice, it doesn't talk about best practice. I know there are a lot of companies, and probably some people in the room here work for training companies that sell you this slide. Okay? PMI does not have a best practice. Forget marketing. Read the PMBOK. I'm just going to go read the PMBOK. The PMBOK says, okay, it's a subset of the project management body of knowledge. Now, if we don't, unless you know English is a problem, a subset, that means a piece. On the notice page of the PMBOK said, it's an incomplete guide. You need to have a methodology to supplement it. Again, this is on the PMBOK guide. So, the PMBOK guide is one of the best books on project management in the world to use it for managing project, but it's incomplete.
That's why it is still evolving.
But unfortunately, it's declining in values. Now, we can debate this as much as you want. Yeah. Yes.
There is also the theory, and then there is the practice.
Yes.
The book provides the theory, but then you have to go for the practice.
Absolutely.
For example, if somebody goes to med school, they are doctors, but that doesn't mean that they know medicine. But
Exactly.
That doesn't mean that they can be good doctors until they're trained for a certain amount.
Exactly.
Same applies.
Absolutely. So this is why I do not want to be misunderstood. You just help me clear this issue. The PMBOK is one of the standards I've been using for 20 years. Or one of the standard documents, because it's not even a standard. And I know some people will argue about that. I can spend, you know, if you want to debate me on this, you can go online and you can find my blogs on these topics. So basically, the PMBOK is one of the standard documents, one of the books that is useful for managing project. It talks about the process. So I was chatting with a colleague earlier today, and I said, okay, when I talk about national standard for project management in the UAE, what I was talking about? Am I talking about now all of a sudden the UAE to go create something, invent something from scratch? Absolutely not. Okay? Now let me sidetrack for a second. I always joke with my team and people said, you know, with Google and everything around the world today, the culture of copy-paste is quite dominant. And I say copy-paste is wrong. We should do CPM. Copy, paste, and modify. Okay? Why? It will be stupid not to copy-paste. But to copy-paste blindly it's really bad. Copy, paste, and modify, because we do not want to reinvent the wheel with every project. That's why we talk about standardized process. So not every project manager gonna just basically follow. You know, it's a joke. One time I was working on a project, a construction project, and we have a control room. So all the work is gonna be done inside the room like this. And one of our friends was copying the contract from another job. And in the contract, he requested a 200-ton crane. Now, a 200-ton crane probably can lift the room like this. Okay? All the work is inside. Why? Because copy-paste. It's not bothered to read the contract. Just copy-paste as is. No, absolutely not. We want to copy-paste as much as we can. That's the whole purpose of standardized process in organization. That's the whole purpose of OPM. To establish a standard that we can copy-paste and modify across the whole organization. Instead of every project manager does it their own way. That's the challenge for us. But CPM, copy, paste, and modify. So the challenge with this is that when we have standard, and PMI is telling us that you have good project manager, and obviously good project manager that are certified, still not good enough. Okay? Another quotation. Project management in terms of simply focusing on scope, time, and budget is not sufficient for managing the scale and rate of change that is normal in that organization today. Okay. So managing cost, managing budget, not good enough anymore. We've got to take project management to a higher level. It's not about managing single project. It's not about individual qualification. Going back to what you said, I could have the best people and the most, trained project manager on my staff, and they still fail in delivering project if they don't understand the psychology of the culture and the culture of the organization. If they don't understand organizational system and how their project impact everybody else in the organization, and how other projects in the organization impact them. We've got to transform even the role of the project manager from being a technical clerk or a technical expert into a project manager who may not know anything about the technical work. Yesterday I posted something on Facebook because PMI was promoting something on, I guess I'm critical of PMI because I've been with PMI for 20 years. They said basically, the PMP, now the PMP help organization be innovative in solving problem in the world. I told them, why don't you discover Ebola, a cure, and world peace along with it? Basically, that statement, that indicates that PMI doesn't understand the role of project manager. Project managers are not supposed to be technical experts. Yes, but then they post something on social media. They said the PMP are being technically innovative. This is, if you look at, this is what's yesterday, Facebook and Google and all the social media channels. Another post from PMI this week said, for developer and programmer to improve your career, get the PMP. How is that? How can you get your PMP if you don't have project management experience? Anyway, let's not make it a PMI discussion here, but this is PMI. The same thing. They are saying, in one way, they're saying PMP is everything, and another way, they're saying it's not enough anymore. We need to build the organization system. I think I made the point. We can debate it if you like. I know somebody already told me I'm not buying what you're saying today, which is fine. We can have a discussion. We can continue the discussion online, but let me move on to what we are proposing. Again, let me be clear. I want to make sure. What we are proposing is something I work on. It does not mean it's the only answer. When I advise my clients sometimes, I said, I don't care what system do you use. If you want to build your system in an organization, I think the gentleman was talking at the break, said, whether you want to do Prince 2, you want to use IPMA, you want to use something you invented yourself in your organization, it doesn't matter. What matters is this two words. If somebody asks me what is project management, I say it's a disciplined approach. Project management is a disciplined approach. Meaning what? Meaning establish your own system for project management, whether you invent it from scratch or you borrow someone. And here I go back to the concept of why invent anything from scratch? CPM, copy, paste, and modify. Okay? And instead of copying from one book, why don't you copy from multiple books? Or choose the best of the multiple books. Okay? So, who are the leading organization in project management today? The best one that I like the most, no one have heard of. And one of their leaders is here today. GAPS. Anybody have heard of GAPS? The Global Alliance for Project Performance Standards. Okay. I mentioned Professor Crawford earlier. She is one of the, basically, the people who established this organization. In my view, they are the best project management organization in the world. Why? They publish standards free for everybody to use. Now, obviously, I'm biased to them. But there are others as well. Many organizations, they publish stuff. So, why can't we, if we are a large organization, if you are a small organization, don't waste your time. It's very difficult to go through multiple sources. But if you're a large organization, why do you put all your eggs in one basket? Invest in learning the best in the world. Now, being in project management for 30 years and being around the world, this is what we tried to do in my company a few years ago. We established what we call the 7 E's. Okay? Now, what have we done with the 7 E's? Okay? What does it mean? Let's talk a little bit about it. It's a well-known concept in project management, and go back to the question you raised earlier. Is it, what's more important, people or process or tools? Okay? The 3 engines of project management, what many experts in project management would agree to, project management is about the 3 engines of project management, the 3 drivers, the 3 gears, people call them differently. It's people, process, and tools. That's why I said earlier, as a training company, I tell my client, do not invest in training first. Because if I invest in the training, if I come and train you on PMP, or Prince 2, or IPMA, or cost engineering, whatever it is, okay? And that's not the system you follow in your company. What happened? Basically, I taught you a new language, okay, that the organization doesn't speak. Again, talking at the break, my colleague saying a lot of organizations in Europe that invested into Prince 2, they invested in Prince 2 for people to speak the same language. In my book, I wrote the same thing. As one of the COO of one of the companies that we have worked with, I told him, why are you investing in PMP? He said, because I want my people to speak the same language. I told him, great, now your PMP speaks the same language, but do you? As a CEO, do you speak the same language? Does your organization system speak the same language? And I put this in my book. Okay? So by investing into Prince 2 or PMP or whatever it is, if the organization system doesn't match it, I'm training people on a foreign language that they're not allowed to use back in the office. This is why we say if you want to have OPM, if you want to have excellence and maturity, invest into the process first. And then train your people on that process. Whether it is PMI, whether it is Prince 2, whether it is APM, whether it is GAPS, whether it is AACE, regardless whether you invented it yourself. Invest into your own process, your own system, your total quality management system for project. Invest in it and then train your people on it, because you will have created your own language. Now, if you want to borrow a language, that's fine. Borrow the language and speak it. But speak it, top to bottom. So we started with this concept. Organization must focus on all 3. It's really sad how often we go to organizations, we find out they have invested in tools first. They bought $1 million ERP system, and their people are not trained to use it. Okay? Tools is the last thing. The most important, now people debate and argue, which is better? Which is more important, people or process? Honestly, I haven't made up my mind yet.
Because we interact with each other.
Yeah.
Do we compare
But let me ask you a question differently though. If you have a highly experienced project manager that come to work in an organization, there's no process. Or you bring in a new graduate, in an organization there is a process. Which project would be better? Yeah. I don't know the answer.
It depends. In the first case,
if you allow me, I'm working with an international company with 175,000 employees. Okay. So we created first the process from Japan, implemented in Japan all over the world. Okay. And yes, we implemented here with modification. So the process is the first.
Okay.
the project manager really experienced, he would set up processes for this team.
But if I hire you to work on a project, I don't have time to sit down to do the process. This is the mistake. No, believe me. This is the mistake that organizations making today. They even hire project managers to do their PMOs. But as I mentioned, the example, the project, these guys come in, they don't have time, then the PMO get lost. Okay?
In my opinion, I would say the process recently more than estimated 75% organizations, they don't have process. They're still working as a project.
Yeah.
So definitely the people are the best one.
My answer to this, it depends. This is $1 million answer always. It depends. It depends on what? Obviously, if you are in a very small organization, probably people come first. Because you need to have a qualified team in there, and they can build their own process because they are small enough. But if you're a large organization, 5,000 people, or 1,000, or 100, 200 people, 300 people, you really have to have the process first. So it depends.
Yeah, but then if you have a process, then you need at least 3 years to teach them, right?
That's good. I will hang on to that question. I have something on that later. But yes, it might take 3 years to teach them, depending. Again, I'm not trying to impose an answer here because it really depends. And project management is always the magic answer. But going back to this is how we started. So basically, one afternoon, my wife gave me an order, said, you have to take the boys, I have 2 boys, take them to play soccer, football. So I took them, but I didn't feel like getting out of the car. So fortunately, I had pen and pencil with me and papers, and I was reading something, and usually the way my mind works, once I start reading something, I immediately sidetrack somewhere. And I end up drawing something like this. Okay? So basically, what is this? This is the 7 E's. What is 7 E's? It's the 7 element of project management maturity based on the SOCAD model. Now, this wasn't designed to be an assessment tool. It was designed to a tool that organizations that are new to project management or starting project management or don't have much to use it to build their system. And then later on, they can bring someone to assess it if they wish. Now, how did this transform? Well, the middle part, the method and the process, are more, some people call method as a process. So basically, this is a process side. People, process, and tools, right? So this is the process. This is the people, and this is the tool. Now, what do I mean by this? Method, what is method? Well, today, unfortunately, you don't find many organizations that have, if you do research on methodology, project management methodology today, you will not find many in the market. Why? Anybody knows why? I mean, today, if you do research on methodology, you probably come up with 2 or 3 methodologies that are documented in the world.
It's PMI fault.
It's not PMI fault. It's not PMI fault, although PMI is not helping solve that problem. Because when people publish on PMI literature, they said that PMBOK is a methodology and PMI doesn't stop it, then yes, PMI is partially guilty. But no, that's not the reason. Guys, everything we've been talking about today, custom fit. Methodologies are custom fit to the organizational context. The only known methodology out there that you can probably find that are published online, Prince 2, okay, it's a methodology because it's systematic in the way it does. And there is, some people in IT probably knows PROP. And I know there is IBM have something called DRUP, R-U-P. So there are maybe 4 or 5 known methodologies out there. If you come to software development, there are software development lifecycle, there is agile, there are some methodologies specific to software development. But project management methodologies around the world that are very few known. Why? Because it's custom fit to the organizational need. So as an organization. So what did we do as SUCAD? We have developed a methodology that which is on the back sheet of what you have, which is what the book is all about. But what we are saying, we call it customizable and adaptable. That means you need to take it and customize it to your organizational need. Okay? That's the method. What is this part? This is a PMBOK. This part here is the PMBOK. The PMBOK as a guide is called a guide to the project management body of knowledge. The main focus on the guide is the processes of project management. How to develop a charter, how to identify risk, how to plan quality, how to plan HR. These are individual processes that repeat in every phase of the project. So the PMBOK guide, as mentioned earlier, that this is a guide I've been using for more than 20 years in my career, okay? And since the beginning, actually, since it was established in '96, the first guide came out, I've been using the PMBOK guide, and it is an excellent guide, but for the process. It focuses on the process. It doesn't focus on the life cycle. I think somebody said the PMBOK is continuing to grow. Unfortunately, in the area of project life cycle, the PMBOK is deteriorating. The 2000 edition was much, much better than the recent edition, where it talked about project life cycle. Project life cycle as a concept almost disappeared from the PMBOK in the 4th edition and the 3rd edition. In the 5th edition, they tried to put it back in.
Please correct me. Based on many items as well as the culture, organization chart, and so on, companies have to customize and develop the methodology. I'm so confused about your model. Is it methodology or is it a standard that if I buy or purchase your model, should be customized with and develop it for myself, for my family?
The answer to this is a long answer. I make it very short, which is Prince 2 actually is, I said something, I used the wrong term for it earlier. Prince 2 is not a methodology, it's a method. Okay, we call this. But most people today, if I would give an English lesson now, most people today confuse the word method with methodology. Method is a specific method. Methodology is the science of method. Okay, so basically methodology is not something, it's a study of method, like biology or whatever the case might be. We called our tool methodology. Why? Because it's not a single method. It has to be, once you customize it, once you take our system, our proposed camp, which we call camp, and you customize it to a specific domain, to a specific type of project, and it is a method. But we call it methodology because it is customizable and adaptable. So you have to take it as a model and customize it based on what your needs are. So if you don't customize it and use it as is, you probably are not doing a good job.
When we go and talk about the methodology, we have to speak specific about the domain. For example, IBM developed the rational unified process.
Yeah.
For just software development,
Yeah.
we have many industry as well as construction, oil and gas, and so on. And you know better than me, each industry has a specific domain. For example,
Absolutely.
For example, in construction, we have the very specific procurement domain.
Yeah.
How are all the domain and industry by your model?
Yeah. Let me, okay, I'm going to give a quick answer because this is not about the model, so I don't want to sidetrack the presentation. But in general, this model is, again, is provide the high-level guidelines. The high-level guideline, you take it and you customize it. I can tell you, we use this methodology on building a farm. We have used this methodology to write a book. We use this methodology to develop software. We are using this methodology for construction. We are using this methodology for marketing. Okay? But customize. That's the key. Not as is. The main principle there has to be every project must have phases, must have gates, okay? It must have deliverable. Everything else is variable. So again, I will be happy maybe to do a workshop in the future. If you guys are interested, I'll be happy to organize a free workshop in Dubai and talks about methodology, okay? But in this, I want to basically go back to this one here. So we don't sidetrack too much into a discussion. So the core of this model, what we are saying here is the following. Let me sidetrack away from this for a second. If you are an organization, whether you are new to project management or you already have some system but nothing formalized yet or nothing significant done yet, and you want to establish a proper OPM system, how do you do it? If you are a small organization, we say that you need to implement the core first. I'll go to that, actually, it's on the next slide. We have to implement the core element first. You cannot implement project management without focusing on these 4 elements. You can, obviously, of course. I mean, some organizations implement the PMBOK alone. And some organizations will impact Prince2 alone. And some organizations they will come and say, I want to implement yours method, Mounir, alone. And this is wrong. I'm telling you, if you use my method alone, you fail. So those who think I'm criticizing PMI too much, please listen to what I'm saying. If you use SUCAD alone, you fail. You want more honesty than this? You've got to grab what you can from the different sources. So this is what we're trying to do here. If there's a new organization or organization want to implement project management, you really need to think about the method or methodology, and you need to have the process, and you need to have the tool to support that. Now, professional development, yes, to me, absolutely. Without proper training of your people, you cannot do it. So as a minimum, absolute minimum, any organization that is serious about project management, you have to implement these 4 elements. Implement them and live with them for a year or 2. If you want to climb the maturity ladder, you have to go to what we call the differentiating elements, which are 2. The knowledge management and organizational learning, which is the circle, and then leadership and competence framework, which is another circle. Okay? Then you need the strategic aspect. Now let me be clear. I invented the circle, but I did not invent its content. Again, this could be Prince2. It doesn't have to be SUCAD. It could be Prince2. It could be RUP. If you are in software development, it could be software development lifecycle. It could be agile. It could be anything you want. Establish a method from anywhere you want. PMI is good at the process. Okay? Now, professional development, I'm not sure if there is a good standard for professional development in project management. But GAPS, the organization I mentioned, they have a standard called Program Manager and a standard called Project Manager. They are very good resources if you want to look at establishing this. But what GAPS and IPMA, which is another organization that is older than PMI, focus on is this, competence. PMI focus on process. IPMA focus on competence and gaps. Prince2 focus on method. So what I'm saying is, if you want to have a healthy life, you cannot depend on one type of nutrient. You need to mix your diet. As simple as that, guys. Same thing in project management. If you depend only on PMBOK, you're not getting enough. If you depend only on Prince2 or SUCAD, it's not enough. If you depend on IPMA alone, it's not enough. I'm sure people from PMI or IPMA would disagree with me. But guys, before I even said a word about PMI or IPMA, I'm saying something about SUCAD as well. So you need to kind of select what's good. And again, if you want to take your project management to a higher level, you need to have leadership and competence framework. You need to focus on competence. And competence not only for the role of the project manager, but for all people involved in projects. Okay, whether they are project engineer, project manager, cost engineer, or whatever.
Yeah, it's a very interesting discussion what you are trying to say, like PMI and IPMA.
Where do you drive?
Your competencies.
No, if I want to drive my competence as a project manager, let's say for a project manager?
In my opinion, basically from processing, right?
Yes, not for process and not only process.
So they are basically interlinked.
No, competence, remember, if you look at IPMA, and I'm not an expert in IPMA, when they talk about competence, they talk about the I of competence. And they have 3 different elements. They have what they call leadership competence, they have the technical or contextual competence, and they have what they call the soft skills competence, interpersonal skills.
Well, of course, it varies from project to project in which
course.
area you are.
Of course.
Definitely the competency. But what I'm trying to, let's say, share with you, or trying to understand from you, that the competencies are basically derived from the processing, what is the concept of IPM. And you think that they are basically linked with each other?
No, absolutely, absolutely, because how do you determine competence? Let me give you an example that's very easy, right? Very easy to understand. You know, I have a recipe to bake a cake, right? So, and I learned how to bake a cake. Okay, baking a cake, knowing how to bake a cake is knowledge, which what PMI focus on, by the way. The knowledge of how to do it, okay? But competence is about prove to me you can bake a good cake. See what the difference is? So knowledge, the process, is I know how to bake a cake. Or if I bring it to project management, I know how to do a charter. I know how to identify risk. I know how to do an HR plan. I know how. Competence is demonstrate to me, you know. It's like, I think the lady here talked about the assessment earlier. Said, oh, you're telling me you have a procedure for this? Show it to me. I want to see it. So competence is that if you focus on, obviously it has to be linked to a specific process, but you need to show me your ability to be able to do something. This is why, for example, IPMA certification, even IPMA, for those who don't know IPMA, they have 4-level certification. The lowest one is only knowledge-based. The second one, which is slightly higher than the PMP, you actually cannot get the certification by exam only. You have to be interviewed. And for the highest level certification, you have to have 2 people come to your office for 2 hours each for an interview to give you the highest level certification in IPMA. So why? Because they want to see proof that if you told me you know how to do a schedule, show me. I don't want to do a multiple choice question on the exam that you know the difference between leads and lags. I want to know that you're able to use it in the real life. You understand how to use leads and lags. Okay? That's the difference in competence. So yes, competence has to be built in relationship to a process, but not only process to be automated, because it's also soft skills is related. Right? I'm not an expert in competence, let's be clear here. But yes, competence, most people, PMI advertise the PMP is demonstrate competence. Technically, that's not true. Because most expert in competence, and I'm not, but from my own reading and research, like, competence has to be proven. You know how to bake a cake? Show me. Don't tell me, show me. So it has to be proven. And this is why IPMA certification is focused on interviews and show me detail and show me things that before I can certify you as a competent project manager. That's the difference between them. So that's what I'm saying. If you want to, initially, I'm okay with the process. You know, establish some process. At least people don't have to go Google how to do an HR plan. People don't have to go Google what the staffing plan look like. Or people do not need to go Google to look for how does the stakeholder matrix look like. Right? At least if I want to have it in my company, that people can follow. That's the basic. That's the most basic form of project management, is that core element. This is how we design the system. And then you can start to build on it. Now let me quickly go through the rest of the slide just to highlight the key. I spoke about those. Now let's say as an organization, you want to implement OPM. How would you do it? Let's say you guys accepted every word I said today. I know probably some of you did not. But let's say you accepted everything I said today. How would you go about doing it in your organization?
You'll probably try to understand what kind of projects they are executing, the nature of the work involved in those projects, and then go for some kind of a guide, and then start modifying it to adapt to your organization.
Okay. Anyone else?
Understand the environment.
I need to understand the environment first.
Check what you have. If you have the right people, right resources.
Check what we have first. Yeah. Start from what we have. Inventory what you have.
Perform gap analysis where I ought to be and where I'm great.
Yeah, perform gap analysis. Okay, anyone else?
First of all, find out the pain.
What's the pain?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where is our pain as an organization?
I think the best solution is the assessment, for example.
The gap analysis. Where I'm just going to describe how we go about it quickly. Okay? Yeah, please.
Get the management support.
Absolutely. Without management support, hopefully this is coming from management, but without management support, we're spinning our wheels. But let me speak on this one. Just 1 second, I'll come to you. Definitely, I think most literature organization change will tell you change needs to come from top. Of course, if it comes from top, okay, it comes faster and probably easier. But I'm one of those people who have learned the hard way that change can come from the bottom as well. It's much more painful and much more difficult, but even from below, you can make a change. And one of my managers told me once, said, Mounir, you might not be able to go through the rock, but look what happened in the rivers. Water flow around the rock until eventually it destroys the rock. So what we have to learn is, yes, we can, I cannot accept the mindset that people sometimes come to classes and said, I cannot change anything, or I wish my boss was in this class. You can change things. They are limited, of course, but absolutely, the more I have top support, the faster and the better outcome you will have. But people believe change could come from the bottom. Slow, painful, long-term, but it can. At least impact your circle of influence.
I think the most step we should start implementing OPM is modify the vision of the whole organization.
Modify the vision if it needs to be modified, or understand the vision.
In order to adopt the new concept of OPM.
Okay? Let me go through a few slides. First, we need to make an initial decision. Okay? This is something I talked about earlier. Let me highlight what I mean. In my view, what is the best way to do this in an organization? I'm talking about resource-wise. This is go back to the PMC discussion we had earlier. In my view, the best way you can do it is from within. Again, I'm a consultant. I make my livelihood out of selling people services. But I'm telling you, the best way to build OPM is from within. If you have expertise. If you have people with expertise in-house, empower them, give them the freedom to go change things. Okay? That's the best way. It's longer, it takes longer probably, okay, unless you can make people dedicated to this initiative. But it's best if it comes from within, because no one understands your culture better than you are. As long as you are empowering those people, literally. You are giving them the power to make change. Okay? Don't basically go tell them, and every step they want to make, they need to get permission, or slap on the hand if they don't do something that management doesn't like. If that's not possible, the next better option, and this is jointly with an external advisory service. So basically, yes, you can do it inside, but let's say every once in a while, you might be in use of having an expert to come in and advise you. Maybe review what you've done, review your work, give you some ideas, give you some suggestions, but in an advisory role. Okay? The third way, okay, is use consultant to do development, but with internal resources. Obviously, as you notice here, the reason for this arrow is because we are going more from internal to outsourcing model. And again, notice the outsourcing model is, the total outsource model is the least preferred. And I can tell you, sometime, if a client approaches me and they want me to do this, I definitely hesitate. And unless I'm really desperate for money, I would refuse to do the work. Okay. Because I've seen it done many times, where external consultant does the work and end up being collecting dust. It doesn't get implemented. Why is this? Because if you do it with inside people, people buy in the process. This is go back to what I mentioned. When my manager, one of my guys come to me with a plan, I told him, go back and redo it, get the team with you. Because if you don't get the team involved, they're not going to buy in, or they will not be delivering from inside their heart. They will be just following orders. So this is more of a mechanism of how, my personal view on how you do it. Now, if we go to another question we should ask, remember I labeled this initial decision. What are some of the initial decisions you need to make, right? The next one, project or program approach. Now I know this might sound weird for some people. What does it mean? Well, a project approach will give you a big bang effect. What do I mean by this? You want to establish a procedure, system. Let me just give you an idea. The level of work that goes into here is hundreds of hours, if not thousands. We are talking, if you talk about a medium-sized organization, if you want to implement a proper project management system, we are talking about somewhere between 50 to 100 procedures. Okay, so we're not talking about one procedure or two procedure or three procedure. If you want to do it right, of course, you don't have to do 100 procedure. If you want to do this, yeah, you want to bring in a consultant and they spend a lot of time, you spend 6 months. Some organization does it this way. They bring in external consultant, a consultancy firm, they will start writing, they bring in 3 or 4 consultants working for 6 months, they develop a book or a system or a CD and they will give it to you and they go. Okay? What happened? A big bang, at the end, you're gonna roll out this. People will fight it. The biggest challenge we face in the organization, because when we talk about OPM, I hope we made the point today, is an organizational change. OPM to implement, because we are wanting to change the mindset of the organization into a project management culture, a project management mindset. To do this, there will be a lot of resistance to change, because it's an organizational change initiative. Okay? So if you want to bring it in one spot, one shot, big bang, it's likely to fail within a year or two. It's likely. Of course, there is no guarantee this because you can always adjust. But in general, big bang effect and something like this really doesn't work. Okay? So what's the approach? A program approach. Now what's the difference between program and project? For those who know, program is usually a group of related projects. A program should be linked to a strategic objective. Implementing OPM is a strategic initiative. So treat it as such. Treat it as a program. Why is a program? Because it should be long-term. It should be long-term. Okay? A project doesn't work if it is long-term for some of these things. So break it up into pieces. Now, okay, if we accept that, why? It helped me eliminate the big bang. The program approach is more agile, and this approach can be accelerated or delivered over an extended period of time. So first, let me highlight, project or program, right? Project is big bang, program is broken down into pieces. Now, the next question will be, accelerated or extended? Okay, what do I mean by this? Accelerated, you divide, let's say, this initiative into different projects, and you do them one after the other. Extended, which is the recommended approach we follow, is this. You break down your OPM system into projects. 5 projects, 10 projects, 13 projects, 15 projects, depending on how big your organization is and how big of a system you want to implement. Break it down into projects and do what? And start to break them down. So the way we follow is we implement one piece. And I will show you those pieces later. We'll implement one piece. And then let it go. So I can work with the client, whether as an advisory role or the supporting role or lead role, whatever the case might be. Implement the piece, train their people on it, and go away. Go away for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Let them start to practice the new way, but only for a piece, which will not be complete, will not be enough, but we recognize is only a piece. And give them at least 1 month to 3 months to practice it. Depend how big the organization is. If the organization is big, you would want to go maybe for 3 months or more. If it's organization small, maybe 1 month is good enough. Start to practice that. And then, you will be working on the second piece. And 2 months later, 3 months later, you come and implement the second piece. And the second piece, and the second piece. Something like this could take 3 years. Just 1 second. Unfortunately, when we proposed this to many organizations, they said, no, we want to do it as fast as we can. Do it as fast as you can and fail as fast as you can.
To understand more the difference between project and program approach and applying OPM. If we are a company and we do not really operate any program, so we have separated projects.
No, this is not about program management. This is using the program approach to implement an initiative. Forget OPM. Any strategic initiative. Remember some of the study I shared earlier that said organizations fail in implementation of their strategy. Why? Because they need a program and portfolio approach. Okay? So basically what we are using, we're using program management principles to manage a strategic initiative. It just happened in this case, the strategic initiative is implementing an OPM system.
So our project program is the implementation of OPM. This is how we do it.
Yes, yes. I'm talking about right now the initiative. I want to launch an initiative. Whether launch it from scratch or improve what we have. Okay? Now why? This is a slide come from a book from a colleague called Michel Serry. Some people might know. A company called Balance. Basically, he used to be based in Belgium, and I think he's in the UK right now. And he talks about why program approach is the best approach in initiative like this. If we look at this slide quickly, said, okay, let's say we are an organization, this is our original situation, right? But we want to go up there. What happened? If we are going to implement a big chunk of stuff, like a system, project management system, complete system, if you want to implement it in one shot, performance will decline. But will decline, which is, I mean, obviously we all know, part of the learning curve, part of learning new things, part of resistance to change. There will be time, there will be lost effort spent on this. The problem is, with a big chunk, there is a chance you will go below a minimum acceptable level, which is what he called high-risk zone. This is what happens sometimes in PMOs and other organizations. If you get into this high-risk zone, if the organization understands that eventually they will recover, great. But depend on where you are, sometimes executives don't have patience. So you go into this executive high-risk zone, and executives get upset and fed up, and they feel they're not delivering value, and they kill the initiative. And this is why initiatives fail.
Why do you try to compare program approach and project approach?
Because the project approach.
Where is the portfolio?
No, because it's not a portfolio.
Do you think that the portfolio is mandatory and is very important for organization? Because many organizations, first of all, try to implement the program or project without any portfolio.
No. Your question is related to his question. I'm not talking about what you implement in the organization, whether you're implementing portfolio approach. Obviously, an organization can do project, program, and portfolio.
Because you tell us program approach is okay. Based on which it is.
No, wait. Be careful what I said. Again, if I was an organization, let's say I'm a big organization, I want to implement project management, OPM. I should be thinking about implementing project management, program management, and portfolio management in the organization. Yeah, but if I'm one of those people who believe in step by step. First, I want to teach people how to manage basic project. Then I might teach them how to manage program. Then I will go to the portfolio. Okay? If I have enough people and a big organization, maybe I will work all three passes in parallel. Okay? But here what I'm saying is, I'm not talking about portfolio, I'm talking about the approach, the mechanism I'm using. Am I going to call this OPM? Let's say something called OPM initiative. This OPM initiative, is it a project or is it a program? It's better to see it as a program. Okay? And again, it's better to do it in program. Why? Because this is one of the problems with this. If we go into this high-risk zone, because I'm implementing a big chunk of things, okay, basically, what happened? It could fail, or management could lose patience. I have two boys, young boys, and I'm monitoring how they study in school, and we notice, for example, year to year, they almost get the same material. But what happened, as the kid go from one grade to a higher grade, you will find some of the same material repeat, but in a more advanced way. That's in a way the same concept. Why? Because I cannot teach a kid that is maybe in 6th grade trigonometry or calculus. But I can teach them a little bit with arithmetic first, and then I can teach them some algebra, and I can grow their learning, or in science the same way. We cannot teach them all subjects at the same time. So we have to gradually build capacity. And I know I'm not an HR academic or educational academic, but many people that sometimes I know when I was growing up, some parents would be proud if their kid skip a grade. Most education experts will tell you this is a mistake. Because missing a grade, you miss the maturity that goes with the grade. That's in a way, in a very loose way, the same principle that we're talking about here. Okay? Yes, you can do it a big chunk. And notice, at the end, we're gonna reach our goal. The problem is, would we be patient enough to go through some real severe pain as an organization? So the program approach came back and said, you know what, if we break it into chunks, what happened? Yes, my performance will decline, but only in the area that I'm implementing, the small area. But then I start to recover. Then I will decline again with the next piece, and then I'll recover, and then I will decline again. But notice, the fluctuation in the curve start to reduce. Meaning, with every new part, the resistance to change is less. Why? Because we go through this period of relative stability where benefit is achieved. In a project, you don't achieve your benefit until the project is over. Where in a program, you achieve the benefit with every project. So when you divide your whole and big initiative into small pieces, you are realizing benefits with every piece. Therefore, if you are doing it right, you get your management support. Because if management is not going to see benefits, they're going to basically tell you, bye-bye.
Are these phases depending on each other? Meaning that I have to finish a phase and be successful and ready for the next phase? Or are these phases can be done in parallel?
No, I mean, if you do them in parallel, it defeats the purpose. You can do them in parallel. You can have 10 teams. You can have 10 teams working on 10 projects at the same time. But that defeats the purpose. The whole purpose of this fractionation, this is the division, is to take it every piece sequential and make it implemented, let people get used to it before you give them a new learning.
The way you do the thesis,
yeah.
Is it related to the core you showed before? You start with the processes.
I will show you. I will show you. Exactly. I will show you. There is no formula for this.
Can you switch?
There is no formula for this. I'll give you my recommended approach based on what I think is best. But this is my opinion. You could see it differently. Again, from organization to organization could be different. And some organization could decide to implement a small piece and then 2 years later come back with the second piece. You know, it all depends on organization culture and organization readiness. But bringing it into small pieces, it allows, and how small of a piece? Obviously, it depends on the organization. You know, I can do this in 5 projects or I can do this in 14 projects. Okay? So basically, this is a quick visualization of this. Now, I'm showing here 7 projects, but this is just for demonstration purpose. Right? This has nothing to do with how many projects you can do this. It all depends. You know, it made sense. 7 elements, 7 projects. But when we start to work with one client on this, we actually divided this into 13 projects. So I will show you a little bit later as well. Next, we do what we discussed earlier. Expectation, vision. What is the vision of the organization? What is the strategic direction? What do they want to achieve? Are their objectives and goals short, mid, or long term? Because obviously, if the company is thinking short term, I need to work on short-term basis. If I don't give them benefit 3 months later, they're going to kick me out. Okay, or they fire me if I'm their employees. If it's long term, ideally we need to think long term. If a client organization comes to me and said, Mounir, I want to be able to implement this in 6 months and I want to see a result, I'll apologize. Because it will fail and they're gonna blame me for it. So I would rather not do it rather than do something that I know it will fail. Are they willing to make the difficult decision? Because this is an organizational change initiative, there will be difficult decisions to make. Even maybe firing some people. Okay, because some people will fight you regardless what. And some people probably will lose as a result of this, whatever the case might be. It could be a major decision, restructuring. It might involve restructuring the way you do business, okay, as an organization. There are to be some difficult decisions. Obviously, you have to decide of how much tolerance do you have for the risks that come with this. You investigate the current state. What's going on today? What do we have today? If we have nothing, we start from scratch. Okay? If you have something in place, it will be a shame to lose it. Identify it. Find out what exists. Is it good? Keep it. Not good? Throw it away. Decent? Modify it. Improve it. Right? I'm not one of those people who believe just basically what exists, throw it away, and I'm going to give you something better. It doesn't work that way. Organization today, all around the world, they do have good practices sometimes. But maybe those practices are in the brain of people. They're not documented. So maybe the first thing I need to do is go around the organization and start to meet with people, interview people, have some business analysts with me, and document the process. Because any organization today have a process, but maybe it's not written down. So don't ignore it. Document it. And maybe documenting it is enough. Why should I create something from scratch and bill my client for extra money? I'm assuming as an external client, as an external organization. Or if I'm internal, why should I get my people to waste time to create something from scratch? If something already exists, all what it takes maybe to interview one person or two people and document it and put it into a procedure or a process flowchart or a mind map. Okay? So please don't ignore what exists in organization. Organizations today have a lot of good practices in place. And their problem is that they're not documented. So when those people who have that knowledge retire, it's lost wisdom. Capture it. Capture it as a good starting point. Okay? Before you waste money on external consultant or external or extra time. Gaps, recommendation. What's the vision? Where are you today? That gives us what we call the creative tension. We want to go there, we're here today. Okay? So how do we go up? Now the challenge is to go up, not to lower expectation. Because what happened, as organizations start to implement, as they start getting resistance to change, what do? They start lowering the expectation. And then 2 years later, we end up where we were before. Failed effort. So we should be able to have the vision, what do we really want to achieve, and build up to it over time. Establish benchmark. If I want to work with an organization, I want to have a secrecy agreement signed, non-disclosure, whatever. I want to know today, how is their project performing? Okay? And then measure a year or 2 years later. This one you do maturity assessment. If you're not seeing improvement in project, you're failing. Something is wrong. You're not delivering. Maybe you internally or externally, or regardless what reasons there are. If we are not improving, we need to show. Management doesn't accept argument. I can tell you we can spend days arguing. You saying, let me give you an example differently. Let's say you have you go to get your car washed. I'm almost done, 2 more slides. You go to get your car washed, okay? And someone, basically they have a sign on the wall of the station that said your car is clean or it's free. And you come to collect your car, and the guy will tell you, please, this is the car, pay me, the car is clean. He doesn't know it's not clean. Clean, not clean. How do you judge clean? It's very difficult it's intangible. Well, you can judge clean by putting a checklist. The car is clean if 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 8, 9, 10 are done, the car is clean. No argument there anymore. So, 2 years later, in an initiative like this, you could be sitting down and arguing with people in the organization. You guys have been spending too much money and too much time, and they've been here for 2 years. What do you show for it? Well, if you don't have data, you cannot really show performance improvement. It's an argument, it's a debate. You must measure to show value. And of course, if your measurement shows that you're not adding value, something is wrong. Maybe the approach was wrong. Maybe the people involved are wrong. Maybe there's too much resistance to change. And maybe it is best to think to stop the project.
But end up in a chicken and egg situation, because you go to the customer wants project management, but they're not aware and understand. So here on matrix, or on benchmark is an issue. Because they are not aware about it. So we need to, what comes first, the
about benchmark here, again, let me be careful. I'm not talking about benchmark against external companies. Internal benchmark. Yeah.
So the customer himself is not aware about the processes and how improvements can happen.
Yeah, I understand, but what I want to do, Anna, because if I'm implementing a project management system, let's talk about quality, right? If I have defect in something, how do I justify quality management? Because I need to know what the percent of defect I have today, and if I implement change, I should be getting a reduction in the number of defects. This reduction in the number of defects should produce cost savings. Same thing in project management. Today, what percent of projects are overrunning? What percent of projects are over budget? What percent of projects have defects? And if I can reduce, I need to know that today, before I start this initiative, and then I can start taking to compare, am I able to reduce defect? Am I able to reduce change orders? Am I able to reduce risk on the job? Am I able to reduce the number of projects finishing on time or behind schedule? I need to show that data.
So the benchmark would be today's status.
Yes, yes. I need to know what's today, where we are today, in order to measure against it. Okay? And I need to show improvement. And I should have a goal. Am I expecting 20% improvement, 40% improvement, 30% improvement? I need to put that goal. Yeah, but I mean, but be careful. We don't want to leave it as too open as well. I want to improve my performance. Great, wonderful. Okay, what's improved performance? We need to quantify as much, but yes, we have to be careful with numbers. Yeah, because I can make the numbers lie. Okay, so let me just quickly. Unfortunately, I don't have. It's not my computer. Otherwise, I was going to show you 2 mind maps. On mind maps, okay, but I can't do that, so I'm going to show it to you as picture. Okay. Now, I know my graphic designer always hates this slide because it's too much color in there. The purpose of these colors is, okay, if I take the element, I know you cannot read it. If you want, I will be happy, email me, and I'll be happy to send it to you in a bigger format where you can print it. I was going to print them here, but I was told we cannot hang things on the walls. So I had designed these already to be printed on large paper, but we were not allowed to print, so we didn't print them. But if you email me, I'll be happy to send you this into a readable format. But basically what we have done, we have taken the 7 elements and broken them down into the different procedure and processes that should be implemented as part of that element. And this is a different view where this one is based on the elements. So element 1, element 2, element 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. 7 elements. Where this one is by projects. So we have a program, and this is the program set up and launch. This is project 1, project 2, project 3, 4, up to project 13, and then program close. So this is a program approach, 13 program. One organization right now we are working with on implementing the first 6 projects, and as a 1.5-year project program. So about 18 months initiative to do it for them. Only to implement half of this. Okay? Now, of course, when I say 1.5 years, that doesn't mean I have a team of consultants working for 1.5 years. It means, you have a couple of consultants, maybe a consultant and an assistant, work for a month, then take a break, and then work for a month and take a break, and do it piece by piece. Again, I'll be happy. I know you cannot read anything over here. I'll be happy to send you this. Email me, and I'll be happy to send you this as a readable PDF. And if you have mind map software, I'll be happy to send it to you in a mind map format. But basically, each one of these is a project and include what to be implemented within each project. So this is where we broke it down the project. Now, to answer your question, the gentleman here, to answer you, what we did is basically project number 1, 2, 3, and 4 is the method element. So even the method, we broke it up into 3 projects. And the process element, the PMO, we broke it up into 3 projects. Okay? I'll start with method. Because the method is a life cycle. Method, process. Okay? Then after that is optional. Okay? I mean tools, usually tools, and professional development. Okay, that's the process, the core first. And then we can do the differentiating element after. But actually, sorry, let me be careful. The first project is a strategic element. Piece of it, not all of it. Project number 1 and project number 12, I think, is a strategic element. So we take the strategic element and break it up into two parts. A part that has to be established at the very beginning, and a part you can actually close with at the end after you've done all the other pieces. So we start with the outside circle, we go to the core, then we go to the rings. Again, I would be happy to share this with you in detail.
You just mentioned that you established the fact that going to the program approach is fine, I like that, right? Do you think that you just said it will take about 3 years, and during this process, how do you get the management buy-in? Because you will not be able to produce results at a pace that is expected normally. And how do we handle that kind of...
No, but I mean, the advantage, forget this discussion here. In general, program management, let's talk about project. Project have a specific set of objectives to be established and to be achieved at the end of the project, right? So you don't get your benefit until the project is finished, okay? So a program, if you divide it into small projects, each small project that could be a month to 2 months, no more than this, have benefits.
So you might just sell this to management?
Yeah, I need to show them benefit. I need to show them, like for example, in the strategic element over here, there will be something that talked about governance, approval points, criteria for selection of project. Okay? Maybe today, the organization approve project any which way you want. There is no clear guideline how you establish. You establish a process for how we select project, then all of a sudden, now you have a system in place that any project that is not considered strategic, you kill it. That's the benefit, right? You don't waste your time on project that's not of strategic value. So just by implementing a system like this, one procedure, you should expect benefit immediately from it by eliminating projects that are not high priority. Okay? I can give you one example on this. One of the organizations, when I was establishing SUCAD, I was doing a survey, and one of the guys told me, you know, Mounir, what my problem in our organization, this is a big organization. He said, anybody come up with an idea, it becomes a project. That means you start spending time on it. Now, when the real project comes, you don't have people to work on project because everybody is busy on their pet project. So just establishing a project selection criteria, which is one of the procedure part of the strategic element around this, the outside circle, it kills that problem. That's benefit. Management wants to see benefits. You show them benefit, they will give you more. You know the rule in life, people want to go with the winner, right? You're not winning, find another job. Okay? So, to speak for itself, what are you doing about this? I leave it with that. Okay. I'll leave it with that. Just a reminder, I put a note here. Basically, myself and SUCAD are on all social media, whether you're LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you are, we have channel. Usually, SUCAD, look for the SUCAD group, or me, look at Mounir Ajam. I have my personal website as well. We do publish blog in English and Arabic. Okay. We have a bunch of books, e-books that are available for free. The e-books, all e-books, well, let me be careful. The books that I distributed earlier this morning, they are available in e-book, but those cost money because they are not published by us, they're published by a company in the US, but there are some e-books on our website that are all free. You can download, read more. Unfortunately, I haven't published anything about OPM, but we publish on the methodology, and they are available. You have my business card on the table if somebody wants it, and of course, I will be staying here for a short while if you want to entertain some question. I will be staying in the hotel here in the conference for the next 3 days. If you want to see me, to chat about any of this stuff, just let me know. We can schedule a short break, we can talk. With this, thank you. Thank you for attending. Hopefully it was good.